Let's fucking do it.
Yeah. Okay, so we are live.
Hi, everyone.
Everything we do and say is being recorded as of now.
No more dicks. Got it.
So...
No, we need exponentially more dicks. What do you think we are, monetized?
This is
Definitely not now.
luxury.
This is Elder Scrolls lore. If it can be interpreted as a penis, it's probably a penis.
Except
This
when
is
it's a
correct.
vagina, yeah.
As we all know, Adamantia is the oldest penis.
Yeah.
The oldest and greatest.
Yes.
The Amulet of Kings is the oldest vagina. Anyway.
Yeah.
God, I need to...
What do we want to talk about? Let's talk about
Fuck, man.
Let's talk about how I need to find more Ordinary Dominion propaganda. Because the only one I've found so far just talks about how 9 times out of 10, it's the fault of men that bad things happen to Tamriel. And they're not
true,
wrong.
though.
Have you read the thing? Jonathan wrote a thing that I love very much. And it's this Thalmor, like, scientist, for lack of a better word. And he's trying to figure out the effects of ideology on people in the here and now. And so he forces people to breed to control, like, the race. So then he can, like, introduce specific ideologies to them. And
This sounds incredible.
it's like some straight up eugenics shit, and it is fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly their remit, so
yeah,
that sounds perfect. I don't need to read that.
Not to say that I endorse
Oh, of course not.
support eugenics in any way. No, I just think it was great for the Thalmor.
God, what a time to be alive where you have to, like, premise everything, like, not to say I agree with the space Nazis.
Yeah, no, I am 100% not a Nazi.
God, what was it Todd explained? Like, I remember he was he had brought up how it's kind of misleading to compare the Thalmor to the Nazis.
That is
because
true, yeah.
Everyone's missing the much bigger, more solid connection of the Thalmor is the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh, wow, yeah. Fuck.
Yeah, that was something.
They're the Spanish Inquisition cranked up to 11 because they're actually killing people.
Yeah, well, I think given the day and age and the relevance right now, Nazis are just kind of the go-to for bad stuff.
It is the most recent racists.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard this. I don't have any substantiated evidence or anything, but I'm under the impression that before World War II, people would refer to other bad people as pharaohs.
I can see that.
Which, I mean, is kind of
now the thing is, I can only really see that in Jewish and Christian cultures. Just because that seems like it would be probably some of the few cultures where that would make sense.
Yeah, because
in Jewish and Christian cultures, from like a young age, you've probably already heard about the stories of Egypt. You've probably already heard about those stories in the Bible.
Yeah.
So you already equate pharaohs with being bad.
Yeah. Which, from a historical standpoint, the pharaohs, the Egyptians, I mean, there may have been some slavery going on, but for like the pyramids and all their construction projects, like those were all paid laborers.
Yeah, well, that
was a very high honor to work on it.
Like I think that's something a lot of people seem to miss. The Egyptians were incredibly devout with their religion.
Yeah.
Like to a very high degree.
Like even the book of Exodus, it's like, oh, there's all these Jewish slaves, and like looking at the Egyptian record, they were an empire. They kept records. No such record of Jewish slaves.
Yeah.
And like that would be something. Oh, yeah, we sent 15 more slaves over to Giza today. like, I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. Like, there's obviously people who would say, oh, they didn't keep record because they were ashamed of it. But that was also a time when like the concept of slavery was more just you abducted someone and put them into slavery.
Yeah. I mean, like, war prisoners, I get. And I'm sure there were like slave servants or whatever. Like, oh yeah, here's someone who was captured in this war with the Phoenicians or whoever, and now we're going to oh, hey, you're really good at maths, so you're going to teach my son how to deal with numbers and shit. Okay. And that's, it's almost like indentured servitude, but
quite often, yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, we got a bit off topic here.
Yeah, we did.
Oh God! All right, so I, following that link that I posted, I just clicked on 3 banners war because I figured that would be the most propaganda. I found another piece of Daggerfall Covenant propaganda. Folly of the Northmen, men of High Rock and Hammerfell. Would you marry a red-eyed devil from the Ashlands or a scaly lizard out of Blackmarsh? Of course not. Then how are we to account for our brothers the Nords lying down with Dark Elves and Argonians? Only foul magic from Morrowind can explain it. By forming the Ebonheart Pact, the Tribunal of the Dunmer is taking advantage of the chaos in Cyrodiil to attempt an expansion of their rule over the rest of Tamriel. These so-called living gods of the Tribunal are nothing more than imitation Daedric princes who have derived their power from dangerous and forbidden sources. The Pact cannot be allowed to conquer Cyrodiil and the Imperial City, at a time when all Nirn is threatened by Daedric corruption. Trading one cabal of Daedra worshippers for another is just a different road to destruction.
Fucking hell.
Tamriel's history tells us that Dark Elves are uncanny and not to be trusted. Their allies, the Argonians, are alien and unknowable, and we dare not submit to their inhumanoid vagaries. As for our brothers the Nords, perhaps it was their long and bloody civil war that drove the Eastern Kingdoms to join such an unnatural alliance. The Northmen are unwise, but they can still depend on the Daggerfall Covenant. It is our duty as the heirs of the empires of men to break apart the Ebonheart Pact and free the Eastern Nords from the Dark Elven masters.
Jesus fuck.
I mean, they're not wrong.
The writing is A+, because that got me mad.
And people say that the Daggerfall Covenant are the good guys.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
That whole thing about the Tribunal being, like imposter Daedra princes and their powers come from, what was it, like profane and forbidden sorceries or something like that? Like,
yeah, but
like, they're not super wrong.
That's true.
Do you think that they knew that that was true, or was it just like
no? They probably did. That's the thing. The only people who know that's true would be the Tribunal itself.
Meanwhile, Amalek's is just like, kill them.
Real life author know that because I'm sure they did, and that sounds like something that would be intentional. And then the whole Argonians are alien thing.
Obviously, like the in-game author means alien in the concept of like they are so detached from us.
Yeah. I think that's a clever bit of wordplay there.
Oh, it is.
All right, here's a bit of all right, here is some orc propaganda that seems to be anti-Kurog propaganda. Titled Kurog's Betrayal by Anonymous. You've heard grand claims. Orsinium reborn. The elf-loving Bretons are friends. The traitor Redguards are allies. We are welcome, they claim. We are needed, they claim. All lies. Kurog, the false chief, would tell you the Daggerfall Covenant is our future. Kurog, the sellsword who abandoned his tribe, who shed blood for elves and gold as his people languished and starved. The toothless runt who would have us in chains, fighting for the Bretons and Redguards who slaughtered us. Have you forgotten our brothers and sisters at Orsinium? Have you forgotten who launched the crusade to crush the pig children? The same Bretons and Redguards who now pretend friendship sought to wipe us from the face of Tamriel. Now, with fields salted and our homes burned, the cowards and liars offered to return the land they stole. Shall we make peace with our enemies? Shall we thank them for returning what they stole from us through foul magic and treachery? Look past Kurog's silken words. Look to his cowardly deeds and to the ancestors who gave their lives to keep us free. This Daggerfall Covenant is a chain around our necks. They wish to make us their dogs. Remind them that we are orcs. We will never bow to their so-called High King. Down with Kurog the false chief. Down with Emmerich the enslaver.
Fucking nice.
God, I love the writing in ESO.
Damn right.
Like,
is that from in game or was that?
Yeah, this is all stuff that's in game.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like, this is honestly I feel like this is one of the things that feels really weird with ESO. Just the fact that, like, before ever playing it, I was like, I'm not sure I want to play it. It's probably just going to be dumbed down. It's probably not going to be all that great. And then you play ESO, And it feels more sophisticated than like the past 2 test games.
I will give it like
it's definitely better writing than Skyrim.
Yeah, I will definitely give it that. But like compared to how it opened in the original beta to now, it's almost a completely different game. So I'm very proud of just how much quality they've managed to pump into it after the fact.
Well, that's just it. That's the case with almost all MMOs. They change over time. Like, you will undoubtedly get to a point where, the MMO is very different from what it was on launch.
And honestly, thank God.
All right, here is another one from Anonymous. I cannot tell you if this is Ebonheart's propaganda or Daggerfall propaganda. All I can tell you is that it's anti-Altmer.
All right.
Eagle Hunter against the Dominion. The Dominion is ruled by the Altmer and their vassal slaves. Pay heed to their weakness and cowardice. They employ a combination of subterfuge, magic, and dirty tricks that can trip up a stout-hearted, honorable soldier such as yourself. The cowardly Wood Elves are best known for their unwillingness to engage in face-to-face attack. A Bosmer will strike at you from every side except the fronts. You won't cross swords with a Bosmer, but you might catch an arrow in the throat. Be wary in forests and jungles, and watch your back. Khajiit may look cuddly, but they are no laughing matter in a fight. Don't expect duels to end if you can disarm them. They possess razor-sharp claws that can puncture light and leather armors. It is said that their tails can be used as a crude third hand, wielding daggers and throwing knives with deadly accuracy. Then there are the High Elves themselves. Although the haughty Altmer are often undone by their own arrogance, in a fight their considerable reach can pose a problem. Close the gap between you and your target. Make their height a liability. Strike them low and bring them to the ground. With a little study, a stout-hearted Covenant soldier such as yourself will be able to easily cleave through dozens of pathetic Dominion conscripts. Okay, so this is talking about Bretons and Redguards. So, holy shit, yeah, most of this propaganda seems to be coming out of the Daggerfall Covenant.
Yeah, funny about that.
All 3 sides.
It's almost like Bretons and
I have no doubt that all 3 sides have a shit ton of propaganda. But so far, we've been reading ones that are just straight out of the Daggerfall Covenant.
Look up some by Ankatar of Shimmerine.
All right.
I also like how the advice against the Altmer is basically just punch him in the dick.
Mac, what'd you say the name was?
Ankatar of Shimmerine.
Okay.
He's one of the Sapiarchs.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that makes sense. Damn it, come on.
Well, it's got quiet.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm looking up books.
That was tempting.
Damn it. What the hell? USP, what happened to your books by author section?
How do you spell it?
No. I'm like actually trying to get to the books by author section.
Oh
no.
And for whatever reason, can't get it. Let's see. Books by. Yeah, damn it, what the hell? There's only books by zone and books by subjects.
A rejection of all open borders, is that it?
There's a shit ton.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
And that's just by him.
Oh, jeez. What have you done, man?
No, that's Kin Lady Avenus.
I think this is it. Let's pop it in the chat here. It seems like it would be right.
Yeah. Or let's see. The unforeseen queen continues to impose her radical ideas upon her loyal subjects, inflicting all manner of change and sorrow upon this pristine and uncompromising land. Her attempts to elevate the other races and put them on equal footing with the Altmer is simply unnatural. Everyone knows the value of High Elven supremacy, so why try to weaken it with these impure and totally unwarranted decrees? Let it be known that the people of Shimmerine and their kin lady shall endeavor to do everything in their power to oppose this unreasonable and ultimately dangerous decree. Why do I reject an end to the pristine nature of Somerset? Why? Because of logic, of course. It is a well-documented fact that the Altmer are superior in every way to lesser races that share our world. After all, who else can trace their lineage directly to the Daedra? We proudly proclaim our divine heritage. Unlike the other races, we are not the creations of the gods. We are their descendants. Our genetic lineage can be traced to the original Altmer race, through the Elnofey to the divine et Ada themselves. For this reason, and this reason alone, we should be permitted to preserve our pure bloodlines and maintain the sanctity of our perfect island home. Should the adventurous queen desire more proof, we need only look at our stature, our golden hue, and our natural inclination towards magic. The other races cannot compete with us on intellectual pursuits. They aren't equipped for such a battle. Ours is the first true culture of Tamriel, and we remain the most civilized of all the races. This fact cannot be refuted. We provide the basis for religion, language, and even architecture, and our influence can be seen across the continent. For all that we have provided, we should be allowed to keep a small piece of the world as solely our own. Beyond these self-evident truths, we must consider the poor lesser races as well. How cruel it will be to subject them to their rigors and requirements of our exacting culture and social mores. They simply aren't equipped to handle the precision our customs and traditions demand. Should we embarrass them for their failings? Or worse yet, should we amplify their deficiencies by setting a lesser standard for them to adhere to? They would call us cruel, and rightly so. Let us keep the metaphorical gates closed, and then neither side will suffer any sorrow or discomfort. Allowing the lesser races to migrate to Somerset doesn't do them any favor. Quite the opposite, it will ultimately hurt them in the end. Keep Somerset pure, keep Somerset pristine, keep Somerset to the Altmer. Anything else makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh boy, there's a lot going on in there.
The first link I shared is Akatar against the Daggerfall Covenant, and the second one is against the Ebonheart Pact.
Yeah, it's some weird...
Unflattering in both counts.
Mac?
Yes?
For a little bit, your mic was jittering around.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just...
The first link is
bubbly.
propaganda against the Covenant, and the second one is against the Pact.
Yeah. Now, while I don't really agree with Kinlady Avenus, I do see what she means, because I also know of a lore book that specifically talks about how Altmer tried to teach Bosmer Altmer fighting styles. Like, they tried to teach them Altmer swordplay. Unfortunately, one of the big problems is that the Bosmer just did not have the patience to not only learn the swordplay, but to understand the philosophical undertones behind the swordplay. Which I thought was kind of funny, because...
Well, I doubt the Altmer adapted their teaching style to the Bosmer.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's one of those cases of their teaching style effectively... Like, what they are teaching effectively requires you be the height of an Altmer.
Yeah.
And comparing, like, the shortest Altmer, me, to the tallest Bosmer, they still only come to, like, my chest. And it gets deeply concerning when you realize, oh, this is a very precise form of combat, because this really isn't, like, your actual sword combat. This is effectively just dueling combat. But then they can't really learn it. So effectively, to teach them this form of dueling combat, we'd have to make a completely new form of dueling combat. Which I think would be hilarious. Just think, all right, Bosmer, here you go. New form of dueling combat. Here's some knives. Learn to fight with something other than a bow. You know what? That bow, clock someone with it.
Just punching.
There's a quote by Schick that says Almalexia has got her golden hands in everything the Ebonheart Pact does behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
I would believe that.
Oh, yeah. If they were to win, obviously we know Tiber Septim shows up and, the rest is history. But, had that not happened, then it'd been left up. Had the Pact won, pretty sure the tribunal would have installed themselves as the gods of Tamriel.
Yeah. God. All right. So, I learned recently about the Siege of Alinor. You know, when Tiber Septim had Numidium just raffle stomp everything, and it occurred to me, you're being punched by a literal god. You're being destroyed by a god. You know what that means? You're not just getting killed. You're literally getting wiped from existence.
Yep.
So well, I can guarantee you, there was probably a good number of Altmer who had like an infant child or a baby sister or something that just got wiped out of existence, and then they just had to sit back while they watch other people start worshiping the guy who did that as a god.
Oh, yep.
No wonder they're pissed.
That's gonna leave a bit of a sting, yeah.
That's a very long-lasting sting.
So obviously the answer is to murder all of the descendants of the people who are even quasi-related to that god.
No. See, you don't murder all the descendants. You just murder everyone who worships the god. And then you murder everyone.
The descendants.
No, because not all of them worship those gods.
Most humans.
No, here's the thing. I can actually prove it. Fucking Gunmar from the Dawnguard DLC. Despite being a Nord, he says by the 8. It was one of the weirdest things ever when I first experienced it, because I was like, wait, hold on, what?
That was just a writing mistake.
That wouldn't have bought him clemency from the Thalmor. They want every human on Tamriel dead.
No, they don't, Mac. That's the thing. Because they don't need every human on Tamriel dead.
They want to erase even the possibility of humanity.
No, that's not humanity they care about. It's mortality they care about. Don't get me wrong. When their plan eventually comes to fruition, yeah, every single mortal thing is going to stop being, including themselves. But it's going to stop being in a way that's not just suicide. Like, all right. The first step is to get rid of Talos, because Talos mantled Lorkhan, right? By getting rid of Talos, and thus, stopping worship of Talos/Lorkhan, he becomes weak, because no longer have any worshippers, your power wanes.
That's the hope.
Yeah, that is the hope. Once that is out of the way, that means they can then do the next step of the plan, which is to get rid of Akatosh worship. All right, Andrew, I can see your face. Have you not heard this part of it? So, the thing is, the only feasible way they could get back to an untime scenario is if they are in control of the only god of time. Unfortunately, there's 2 gods of time in the forms of Ariel and Akatosh. And you also have Alkosh and Alduin, etc., etc. The general theory here is that if you were to get rid of Talos, humanity is then undefended. To which you can then get rid of Akatosh worship, because that was one of the most heretical things humanity ever did when they separated Akatosh and Ariel. And if Akatosh worship no longer exists, then the only group that's actively worshipping their god of time is the Altmer. Therefore, they can control time, and they can set things back to an untime scenario. They can effectively put things back to the Dawn era, wherein time is no longer linear, you no longer have mortality, you can exist without fear of death and life.
That's not the point of removing Talos, though.
No. Talos is just a section of that. But I think Talos is not the big end game. Talos is the first hurdle.
The Thalmor want to remove any possibility of men entirely, which means they have to get rid of Lorkhan. Lorkhan is the one who allows men to continue. It's because of Lorkhan that the Elnafey begin to wander in the first place, right? So yes. If we remove the one entity that made Mundus possible, men cannot exist.
Yeah.
Akatosh has nothing to do with that, because come the next Kalpa, Akatosh won't be a thing anyway. we'll be back to square one.
A glorious square run where people aren't getting recycled into the dream sleeve.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's
and that's probably another thing.
Timeless. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know that removing Akatosh would be an actual goal that they would have, because by removing Lorcan, they've solved the problem.
Well, I believe one of the things there is that they want to get, the way it was explained to me, they need to get rid of Akatosh because their plan is not for the next Kalpa, it's for this Kalpa. It's to end the cycle completely.
Yeah, that's never how I've understood it.
Well, I suppose we learned it in different ways, and now we can share these experiences.
Yeah, because
and we can gaze upon Mac's crescent moons. Behold his many moons.
The Thalmor are playing the long game. They're not worried about themselves.
They're playing the extra long game, according to you.
Yeah, they know that when they are recycled to the dream sleeve and convention happens again, there they will be as their souls. Maybe they won't remember any of this, but they will have set up the dice or set up the dominoes so that the way they need it is already there come the turn of the Kalpa. But then by removing Alduin from
you mean Lorcan?
Nope. I mean Alduin.
Because Alduin is the end of the Kalpa. If you get rid of him, the Kalpa will never end.
Which means that the Thalmor cannot adequately meet that goal. So then, yeah, they have to work in this Kalpa because then that's all they have.
Yeah.
But if we take Coda seriously, and we have Landfall, they will never get the chance, at least not intentionally. They get deleted. They are no longer part of Mundus. Therefore, in a manner of speaking, they got what they wanted. They are now timeless and infinite in the fact that they don't exist.
But that is still, the thing is, they want to be timeless and infinite while existing. Well, I say existing, I mean that weird sort of quasi-state of you both exist and do not exist. Basically, they want to be Schrodinger's cat, in a way.
Sure.
But of course, just not existing, yeah, that's not good either, because now you just don't exist, which means you cannot experience.
Although that's what the Dwemer wanted. So the Dwemer technically supersede the I mean, because I'm going off of what Kirkbride said about how the Thalmor win in the end. Maybe it's not the way that they intended to win, and maybe they don't see it as a win. But man is entirely gone because Numidium showed up and fucked them up. And so that's why when we get into Coda, we see only the Khajiit and Dunmer. They're the only ones that survived.
Hell yeah.
Do you ever think the Khajiit and Dunmer are the only ones who survive in Coda because Michael Kirkbride thinks all the other races are smelly?
but then we get to like other headcanons. I think the Slode survive because...
Oh, God. It's true.
Because fart chips.
Because you want Sloda to be a thing so bad.
Well, it's a thing as far as I'm concerned. Whether it's as far as you're concerned, that doesn't really... That's
as far as I'm concerned, we've only seen the Sea Slode so far, and they're weird.
Yeah, they're sure.
No,
I've decided...
What was the name of
Nagasta?
Yeah, Nagasta. Yeah. That was his name. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we met that guy, but unfortunately, that was also in Redguard, the best and worst test game.
Yeah, he had like
it was the best in terms of writing. It was really great writing.
Yeah, he had a big circular like.
Unfortunately,
with teeth.
Unfortunately, it was also Redguard, which does not play well.
I still can't get the damn thing to run.
Really? Have you tried downloading it on GOG?
Yeah, that's how I got it, and it's still stuttering to shit.
I got that to work just fine.
I'll keep poking it.
Yeah, poke it with a stick.
Anyway, slow
man. All right, I found a lore book earlier. I need to look it up. See if I can find it on UESP. But it was, I think it was like the maxims or the doctrines of the Alessian Order.
Oh yeah.
And it was specifically lining out like the truths of the Alessian Order, and it made me very uncomfortable.
Read.
I'm looking for it.
Damn it! I'm having Minotaur feelings again. We'll get back to that.
Did I tell you I made an ESO character who's supposed to be a Minotaur?
Tell me.
I made him like as big a Nord as I possibly could, but he's gonna have a helmet that makes him look like a Minotaur. Yep. And his whole thing is gonna be like charging and dodge rolling. That's gonna be his whole thing. There's the Hyde of Mora House set makes it so that when you roll dodge through someone, you knock them back and stun them for 3 seconds, and just gives you a little bit of damage. And so, if I go like pure stamina and then like lower the cost of roll dodging, I can just like roll dodge my way like all over the place.
Just roly-polying through combat.
Yeah. And then, using the DK abilities, I can just charge people.
Did you just accidentally become Sonic the Hedgehog though?
Oh, maybe.
Oh fuck! This is great.
Hopefully not the new live action one. Fuck that.
Oh god, jeez. That thing's gonna give me fucking nightmares.
I know.
I mean, at least the good news is we haven't actually seen what he looks like yet.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid. I'm very afraid. They have not been able to do anything good with Sonic the Hedgehog for like a decade.
Yeah. Sega is cursed.
They need to let him die. They have tortured the poor thing enough.
We remember Shadow.
Come on.
Yeah, I remember that game they had that was supposed to be like dark and edgy, and like the words he would swear he'd go.
There's a black hedgehog with a gun. Like that's gonna age well.
Damn. It's like, whoa, dude swearing.
Okay. I found it.
Right, guess.
Book titled "The Exclusionary Mandates: The Dictates of the Marukati Selective." The exclusionary mandates of the Marukati selection all are equal. 1. That the supreme spirit Akatosh is of unitary essence as proven by the monolinearity of time. 2. That Shezar, the missing sibling, is the singularity misplaced and therefore doubly venerated. 3. That the protean substrate of that informs all denial of one is the Aldmeri taint. 4. That the prophet most simian demonstrated through the monothought begets proper life. Or demonstrated that through monothought begets proper life. 5. The purpose of proper life is the expungement of the taint. 6. The Arc of Time provides the mortal theater for the sacred expungement. 7. That Akatosh is time, is proper life, is taint death. So the Marukati Selective is just kill all elves. I think you see why I feel
Taint
bad.
Death would be an excellent punk band name. Fuck.
Taint Death?
Taint Death. But yeah, the Marukati Selectives make me super uncomfortable for exactly that reason.
Yeah. Why do you think I'm happy that when I played through the Vigilant mod, I got to just kill so many of the Alessian Order?
Yeah,
I got to kill Maruk. It was great. I got to kill him twice.
Oh, Maruk?
Yeah. Have you not played the Vigilant mod yet?
No.
Part 4 of the Vigilant mod, you go to Cold Harbor, but the unfortunate thing is that this man, who mind you, it's a Japanese mod creator, but he understands a shit ton about Test lore to the degree that Part 4 takes place in a mirror of the Imperial City in Cold Harbor, with the Grey March happening, and also with the Alessian Order being stuck there. It's hilarious.
I don't know. I lost my taste for Skyrim. I think about playing it, and I'm like, no. It just sucks. I'd rather play more.
It can be made to not suck, though.
Exactly.
It can be, but
you can make it not suck.
I don't like the way people look in that game.
That's acceptable, honestly.
You don't like the way people what?
I don't like the game engine and how NPCs look.
Oh, okay.
The overall like art direction, I don't like it.
Okay.
Honestly, can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
You know, when Game of Thrones was new and
when Vikings was popular,
everything was a shade of brown and it was gritty.
It was more sort of greenish gray, if you notice.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I'd rather play ESO.
I'm having problems with that right now because obviously there's a the holiday event now, so I'm just like, oh shit, I gotta do this. But it's like, it's less that I want to play ESO and more like, well, this is my better option for now, which is a little frustrating when it's just like, I really want Skyrim to be the Skyrim that's in my head rather than the one that comes up when I boot the game up, you know?
Yeah.
And just design-wise, it's just Skyrim could have been really great, and every time I play it, I see the paths they didn't take. And it's just a little sad that way.
Yeah. I'm over Skyrim. I bought it for VR, and I hated it. I mean, the archery system is pretty cool, but I don't want to play another fucking stealth archer. I've done that 4 times already.
And that's why ESO is great, because you can't play a stealth archer.
Yeah.
Learn to actually play the game. Learn to animation cancel.
You can, and it's annoying as shit when you are a Magicka sorcerer and you're playing Battlegrounds and you keep getting picked off by some dude using all this shit under stealth, and you're like, fuck you. And then you like go and you hunt that guy down, and then you kick the shit out of him so that he can't like fade away. That pisses me off.
Excuse me.
But that's just me.
So
I already.
I'm sorry. I'm reading through some of Icantar Shimmerine stuff.
I'm missing one achievement for the New Life Festival, and that's the one for the New Life charity writs. I need to do 12. I've done 3.
I've done 1.
I need to do the other 9, so that I can get the ice skin or whatever it is. I want that so bad because I have a character that it would work wonderfully for.
I think I'm a little frustrated with ESO right now, just because like there are parts of it that I really do enjoy, especially with a lot of the expansion running. Like I am digging the shit out of Murkmire right now. I'm very pleased with that.
Oh yeah, Murkmire is great.
But my issue at the moment is, especially with things like the holiday event and stuff, that's normally pretty fun for me. And right now I'm just finding myself thinking, oh, fuck, now I gotta go and get this done and go through my other characters. And it's like...
There's only 10 of them. I've been going through with one character, and I do, like, all 10.
And I think it's just weird that I feel obligated to do this thing rather than do it because I want to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The one, and then just get the ticket for it.
Do you just get 1 per day, or is it like 1 per
thing? One every 20 hours, I think.
Oh, right.
Not mistaken.
I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, just like crafting writs and that kind of thing. All that stuff is once every 20 hours. I don't know why you could feasibly do things within the same 24-hour period.
Okay, unpopular opinion time. Am I the only one that thinks the Indrik mount is super fucking ugly?
It is.
Screw you.
But they're going to do something special with it so that we can feed it some kind of berry or something.
Yeah. They're continuing the whole event ticket thing into next year, where it's going to be things like Imperial City events, Orsinium events, Daggerfall Covenant, or Dark Brotherhood event, Thieves Guild event, where you can get tickets during that event to get berries, and you can then effectively feed that to your Indrik and get a new-looking Indrik.
Yeah, I see that.
Hold on.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, if you go to the place of the whatever the fuck she is, the lady who gives you the feathers.
The Impresario?
The Impresario.
Yeah, the Impresario, yeah. She has a couple Indriks, like, stable, like, right next to her. One of them
you can check them out.
One of them is...
All of them's a Dawnwood Indrik.
And then the other one is, like the Dawn...
It's the Nason.
Some shit
you
like
have the Nason Indrik and you have the Dawnwood Indrik.
Yeah,
and also, if you'll look into the group chat, I just posted what a Pure Snow Indrik looks like.
All right, cool. That wasn't really what I meant. It's perfectly fair though. No, my concern. Well, concern's a wanky way to put it. My issues with ESO's monster design in particular is sort of crystallized with the Indrik, whereas it looks really impressive unless you're looking at it in terms of like, okay, what does each part of this do? What part of this is cohesive?
No,
and
I
looking
think
at it is like doesn't make any damn sense just to look at it. Like
no. I think looking at it makes sense when you know what an Indrik is. Like in mythology, Indrik comes from Russian mythology, and an Indrik is supposed to be the king of the forest. Like it's the king of all animals.
Yeah,
so
I'm
looking
at this
upon a
more
creature
from...
that is part reindeer, part bird, part unicorn definitely looks majestic and possibly the king of the animals.
I'm not arguing that. My argument is more from a design and anatomical perspective. Like, why does it have 4 ears? We don't know. What is the diet supposed to be like? Like, what?
They can hear better, clearly.
I would say that Indrik is much closer gradiated towards an actual Alnafay than other creatures. So like Indriks and giants, and other things like that are still kind of fantastical creatures. Griffins, maybe. They are much closer to Alnafay that ended up becoming animals. They're just closer to being Alnafay than...
God, I love how they designed griffins in this game.
Let's say here's a fucking crab. It's just a...
It's crab.
It's a crab. Like, there's nothing special about it.
Accept it. Accept it as your new god.
That's farther gradiated, subgradiated away from an Alnafay. Whereas, a crab is here, maybe an Indrik is up here.
The cycle is crab.
The cycle is crab.
I definitely see what you mean here. Yeah. I feel like I'm not being particularly clear, and that is my fault because I have too many thoughts and way too much caffeine.
Okay.
What I was mainly getting at was less about the Indrik in particular and more about the kind of staple mashing, if that's a word, which it isn't, of different Earth standard animals together in order to make the thing for ESO monster design, which seems to come up a lot, like especially in things like another unpopular opinion. I also get unreasonably angry every time I see a Vardvark, just because
because it's an aardvark with an armadillo shell and just 2 legs.
It's like 3 different animals, all from the same family, stapled together with 2 legs because things on Vardenfell have 2 legs because the designer said so. And it just makes me aggressive towards them purely because they don't look like they work.
Did you read the in-game?
I did.
Or whatever.
I did.
Like, it's supposed to be an abomination of nature.
It is an abomination, but it's an abomination because it's boring.
All right, so I'm looking through Icantar shimmering stuff.
Yeah, right,
I found something called Thalmor Handbill. A Thalmor pamphlet offering guidance for interacting with Khajiit and Bosmer allies.
Oh, yes, I love this one.
Loyal citizens of the Isles, heed the statement of the Thalmor. Bear witness to these words with our new allies, the Khajiit and the Wood Elves. Integration with our new Wood Elf and Khajiit allies continues apace. To promote alliance harmony, loyal Thalmor agents have drawn together a short list of helpful notices. Follow this mandatory guidance with cheer, and our new allies will look on you with favor. First, do not refer to Khajiit as cats, kitties, fuzzies, or other derogatory feline-based terms.
Fuzzies?
Second, Khajiiti delicacies are often very sweet, or spiced with an exotic substance known as moon sugar. Diners beware. Third, do not touch a Khajiit's tail without permission. Fourth, our Khajiiti's allies have a unique dialect. Mocking their speech or imitating it is considered quite rude and non-Aldmeri. Fifth, when inviting Wood Elves to dine, know that the resources of the forest are sacred to them. Serve venison, but no salads. Sixth, do not refer to Wood Elves as shorties, runties, or other derogatory height-based terms. Seventh, have a care when imbibing Wood Elf brews, as their beverages are often very different from our own. Eighth, do not imply to Wood Elves that they are cannibals or ask them how they dispose of their dead. Eagles unite.
Bloody hell.
Oh god, that's great. Please do not refer to Khajiiti as fuzzies.
It's so close to furries, though. I love it.
Which I wonder if it's related to Kirkbride's Otherkin Get Out pamphlet, which was supposedly, according to some, it's supposedly the only document that is actually written from the perspective of someone in Akavir.
Wow.
And that's That's always the argument some people take with me to try and disprove the lens of perception theory. But I'm not 100% sure I buy it since Kirkbride admitted it was a shitpost anyway. So
yeah, I couldn't read it as anything other than a shitpost.
I mean, if the author is calling it a shitpost, it's probably
a shitpost.
Probably.
Like, you can read into it if you want, but like,
yeah, go ahead. I'm not telling anyone that they have to believe my ideas. Like, I want to believe it, then don't believe it. But I'm going to continue operating on this.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because that's.
Do you remember when, like, for a while, I think it might still be going on in some of the dumber corners of forums, but when people were saying, like, you should cancel having Khajiit and Argonians as playable races because they would just, like, furry bait.
Fuck that.
I know, right?
I don't.
So this is a thing I see a lot.
I don't think I caught that. Like, I haven't been.
This was
in a long time.
Oh, it was on some bullshit like Game Facts, that hive of scum and villainy.
Of course it was.
People on there say,
I love
of hum and villainy.
I just love reading through it, just going like, holy shit. These guys exist.
Welcome to New Aldmeri Irregulars, an introductory pamphlet for new Aldmeri Dominion combatants. Welcome, Altmeri, Bosmeri, and Khajiit warriors. Welcome to the elite force of the Aldmeri Irregulars. Orcs, Dark Elves, and men, most of all, men, are best at war. They have drenched mainland Tamriel in rivers of blood. As long as their follies were confined to murdering one another, what they did in their so-called Imperial City was beneath the notice of the Altmer of Somerset. Then came the Dragon Break. The catastrophe was entirely the fault of men, but the Altmer had to repair it. Now the men of the Empire have catastrophically blundered again, and all of Nirn is threatened. Our good queen had no choice but to form the Aldmeri Dominion to conquer Cyrodiil, and ensure that the good of all who dwell on Nirn, that men never again tamper with forces beyond their comprehension and competence. Only the Aldmeri, the High Elves and their noble allies, the Wood Elves and Catmen, have the wisdom and restraint to peaceably rule the disparate people of Tamriel. Though we are reluctant to take up this burden, events have shown that we must. Recent events prove that the Dragon Break was not a unique event. Men always follow the destructive path of their defender and apologist, the missing god, whom we shall not name. This ends here. Once again, elves shall rule Tamriel from White Gold Tower, this time forever. The world has gone wrong, and we must put it right. March proudly beneath the eagle banner of the Aldmeri Dominion.
Fucking love it.
I mean, they're not wrong.
Not really?
They're really not wrong. This also
Although I do love that...
This also brings up something that I think is really funny. When was the last time that elves ruled Tamriel?
Long ass time ago.
First year.
I do really like the logical gymnastics required to be like, they were doing some shit over there that we don't need to pay attention to, and then they fucked it all up, which is entirely their fault and not ours for not paying attention.
I mean, it's technically not your fault because you didn't take part in it.
I mean, I guess.
Like, all right, it's the same. It's the equivalent of saying, like, I was just sitting in my house, and there are dogs that I know are outside. I'm not gonna mess with them because they're outside and I'm in here, you know, eating my cookies and just generally having a good time during Christmas. And then a cat came out of nowhere and beat the shit out of one of the dogs. And now I have to go outside and help out the dog because I'm a vet.
This is the most convoluted explanation of Tesla ever, and I love it.
I'm not wrong.
No, you're
the cat beats up the dog, huh?
Yes.
It happens.
All right.
I mean, have you not seen that happen? It's terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Like, cats get brutal.
Well, I mean, they have the right to be.
They have dozens of tiny knives on their feet. Of course they're going to win. Ow, God.
All right. The last time elves ruled Tamriel was First Era 241.
So, you know, a couple of days ago, yeah.
Well, I mean...
So, the only people who are still alive to remember that is fucking Devaith Fear, and he doesn't give a shit.
To be honest, Devaith Fear doesn't give a shit about basically anything.
This is true.
Everyone should aspire to that level of not give a fuckery.
Because that's the thing, 241 was the year before the Alessian Slave Rebellion, and then 242, the Slave Rebellion starts, and they take over White Gold.
To be fair,
it was a busy fucking year.
The aliens didn't rule Tamriel.
Yeah, they pretty much they just ruled Cyrodiil.
They were happy there.
Yeah. So actually, no. Even then, yeah, there it is. Elves have never once actually ruled Tamriel.
Actually, that's a really good point.
They've
never ruled Tamriel, but men will scream their heads off if an elf tries to say, "Hey, I want to be in charge."
Actually, that's an interesting thing to go over. Like, why exactly do man races feel more of a need to conquer and emporize, which isn't a word, than elves do?
Imperialize?
Because they're the wandering Elnafey. That's
yeah. They must wander.
They show up. They pillage and plunder. They rape the horses and kill the women.
They smash babies against rocks gleefully.
And so as a result, that's just kind of what that's what they're acclimated to.
But then we get the Red Guards, who can arguably be considered to be even worse, because they just kind of gloss over the fact that they committed genocide.
They gloss over that a lot.
But they're also Anuic in nature too.
So that's the weirder part. Actually, no. Actually, no, Andrew, this brings up a good point. If the Red Guards came from the previous Amrith, they came from Anu's Amrith, are they even Anuic?
Ooh, this is good.
They are if they're being interpreted by Anu. And that's
maybe, unless Anu does not see them as his people.
No, if he's interpreted, it doesn't matter what he sees them as. The fact of the matter is he sees them.
No, what I mean is he does not interpret them as being Anuic. Because he interprets them, for all we know, he may interpret them as something completely different from Anuic and Padomaic.
Sure. I'm down with that.
They are 100% alien, and they talk about how the infidels don't understand that Ruptga has put this land aside for them. And they will clean the elven taint from this desert.
Sorry, I'm never going to stop laughing at elven taint.
Yeah, God. The Red Guards are so racist.
It kind of smells like a gym sock.
If Elven Taint is a gym sock, his man is Taint the jockstrap.
Yes.
Oh no.
I'm sorry. Whether they are, because you've read my lore essay, right, on the lens of perception, correct?
We talked about lens of perception, but you act like I've actually read anything.
You haven't read it? Oh, you need to read. You think
I read things? No. I just look at the words and say what I think it says.
You've been reading half of this Lorechat.
No, I haven't.
It's a great secret, man. You never learned to read.
Yeah, I'll improvise.
It's all a great scam.
The whole thing. Scam. Because I'm just gonna guess
the best scam since Lorcon.
The whole thing is that if we accept the fact that Akavir is a separate dream, a specific dream of Jubal and Vivek, born out of love, both being the joint pillars of the House of We, then that means that because Jubal reached Amaranth, he and Anu, the Godhead, are two different people, right? And so if one person transfers ideas from one mind to the other, that other mind has to interpret it in some way or another. We're talking about qualia here. Have you ever heard the thing like, what if we see colors differently? You know,
yes,
what if
I have heard of that.
My blue. Same basic thing. An idea that originates in Jubal's head gets sent to Anu's head. Anu now interprets it differently, and as a fact of qualia, he simply does not interpret it the same way. What he might see as, or what Jubal may see as love, may be interpreted by Anu as conflict because he doesn't know any better. He doesn't understand that. So he uses metaphors to try and make sense of it. And that's where we end up. Well, that's where we end up with, you know, the Akaviri, you know, like the Sisi who show up.
Akaviri supposedly have constant wars going on at all times.
Yeah, that's not war, that's love. Anu just doesn't know the difference.
The Kamal love the Tangmo the most.
Yeah. Why not? The point here is that anything we know about Akavir is objectively wrong because we are seeing it through the lens of Anu's perception. Anu is interpreting these things, and we are seeing his interpretation.
We know that Akavir sucks because it comes from a Dunmer and a Chimer.
Damn fighting words, god dang it.
Which,
that is objectively correct.
Holy shit!
There are some ideas that Vivek used Jubal as a way to achieve Amaranth, but
holy shit, Mac, that was incredible.
Throwing
shade the whole chat.
But anyway,
throw some shade at an entire continent.
So the whole thing is that if that applies to Akavir, then it would apply to Yokuda as well. Like if the East is a different dream, then the West must also be a different dream. And it stands to reason that this other dream is where Anu, the dreamer who created Tamriel, that's where he comes from. And
where he got beat by, where his dad beat him with jumper cables.
Fuck.
Why do you think he perceives everything as violence? He didn't have a happy childhood.
You're not wrong. Like, there's a lot to be taken there.
I mean,
because he killed his wife. That's why.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, he killed his wife, but realistically, if you just like killed your wife and then you create an entire universe, it's not necessarily going to be a universe of violence. It's more than likely just going to be a universe of grief.
Yeah.
So I think it's more likely. I think it's even more likely that yes, he probably did kill his wife, but there's also the very distinct chance that he just grew up being abused.
There's a very real possibility. From violence, dude. It's grief born from violence.
And a couple of us a few weeks ago, we wondered because we looked at we looked at the whole. Okay, well, Vivek, the only time we've ever seen Vivek as a female is at the end of Coda during the wedding. So we look at that. We looked at a few other things, and we wondered, okay, is Anu actually like a teenager first and foremost? Look at Numidium, teenage tantrum, and just denial. No, I'm not doing it that way. It's rebellion, right? So teenage rebellion. And then we look at what happens with Vivek, and we thought, okay, is Anu the dreamer actually dealing with the struggles of being a transgender person?
Oh, I like this. Let's go into this.
Is that what Anu's dealing with, and is that why we end up with all this? So at the end of Coda, when Vivek is now female, Vivek may actually I guess symbolize Anu's acceptance of herself.
I really like this.
So the whole dream, the Amaranth, is Anu attempting suicide, and the suicide fails, and that's where we end up with Tamriel and all that. This is the flight of fancy of someone who may or may not be dying. And I think it's a really. I don't know that I don't know that this is my headcanon, but it's a really interesting idea.
I really like it.
It's just that it assigns so much importance to a terrible person.
You just really hate Vivek, huh?
Hold on.
You will be hard pressed to find figures in tests that I both love and hate as much as the Tribunal. I love them and I despise them. I mean, I really wish I could land on either side, but it's just a coin perpetually flipping.
Here's the thing, Mac. If Vivek, who has attained Kim, right? Vec has realized that he is part of the dreamer. He has understood this connection. He is, at that point, a self-insert to the story. The author's self-insert. He is the dreamer. He embodies everything the dreamer is. I am everything. I want to be everything at once, but I can't. I need.
Well, so is Talos.
Well, sure, maybe.
Talos doesn't want to be everything at once. Talos doesn't want to be. No,
I'm saying Talos has Chim too. And they're both extremely different figures.
Sure, and perhaps Talos embodies something else.
Talos is when Anu got slightly better at writing and didn't make a self-insert that time.
I mean, maybe Talos is the crushing traditionalism that a lot of people deal with. Oh, this isn't how people normally are, and that's that crushing feeling of society coming down on this person for who they are.
The fact that we go back to a third empire just keeps going back to an empire.
Yeah, I mean it's
when it could have very easily have just been.
Come into this then.
What's that?
How does this, if the dreamer is someone struggling with accepting their rightful identity as a female, even though they were born with traditionally identified male characteristics, is Nerny then the attempt to kill this female identity that he doesn't, that the dreamer doesn't want to identify as but can't get away from, and so becomes trapped in? Or
perhaps
I think trying to kill Nerny is the concept of like him still being influenced by those traditional views, still being influenced by those very crushing ideals. So he's trying to kill a part of himself because clearly he must kill a part of himself because it feels so natural, but he perceives it to not be natural. So he also
seems to feel remorse or regret over his actions toward Nern.
Sure. Haven't you ever had conflicting feelings about?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like that is effectively a part of him that is his true self, but tradition states that is because it's not exactly like him already, is therefore wrong and must be purged. But that doesn't make him feel good about purging it.
I mean, perhaps Yokuda is such a traditionalist kind of place where everything has its role.
Oh shit! Yeah, fucking look at the Yokuns. They're hyper traditionalists.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at it that way, I mean, maybe that's what the story is all about. I mean, we can talk about, oh yeah, there's the story in Oblivion and the story in Morrowind. That doesn't matter. That is not the overarching story. What if this is?
So then how would I like this idea, but now I want to assign you the task because I don't really want to do it. Of you explaining to me how the orcs fit precisely into this overarching narrative, as well as basically absolutely every single thing else.
Well, I will be right back because I kind of want to help answer this, but I'm going to.
Yeah, he'll have it done in 5 minutes. Like.
Oh yeah. No,
well, I mean, I'll be right back. As in, I need to use the restroom, and then I'm going to grab some cookies.
I love cookies.
We call them the pariah folk.
Mm-hmm.
Who in our society is more pariahed than the transgendered?
Like our global society or local?
I mean, specifically talking about America's cultural outlook. That is, I mean, it's getting better, but it's just not. It's not where it needs to be.
I would say either Muslims or transgenders.
Or both.
Sure.
But
I mean,
somewhat beside the point.
Although I will give it to the Muslims.
Mm.
They would prefer dealing with a transgender person than a gay person.
I feel like we're getting off topic a little.
Yeah, which I mean isn't necessarily a good thing because
it's trading one bad thing for another.
Yeah, it is. So
regardless, setting that aside.
Yeah. But anyway.
Small addition, if I might.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I just got stabbed in the back by this cat. So
What'd you do?
There's just a small cat. She's stolen part of my chair. She's a good girl, but she's sharp. Anyway, you okay, Andrew?
Oh, yeah, I've had this cough for like 3 weeks now. And it's either one, recurring bronchitis, 2, it is my acid reflux, or 3, it is both of the above exacerbated by alcohol.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
I'm good. It's just annoying.
I wanted to let you guys talk as long as you wanted before I started to like jump in like as a trans person. Like,
no, please jump in.
I always just felt like kind of obnoxious about it like that. But so like going by the logic that the dreamer is trans and trying to deal with that. If you wanted like specifically what the orcs represented, my best thought would be like because the orcs are the pariah folk, they are almost universally derided as the ugliest, most brutish thing possible. Could very easily just be a reflection of the dreamer's thoughts about their own body. Like it's very easy to make that connection if you really wanted to. I feel like drawing too much symbolism to any one particular thing would be possibly beside the point. The way that dreams work is like there's a lot more symbolism than like straight allegory. But this is probably a bit past the conversation now, but I started having an idea a while back and then I just sort of put a pin in it. So the idea of Vivek as the dreamer's self-insert is a really interesting one, especially in terms of Vivek still having that individual kind of self-awareness on top of that, which must be very difficult to balance out. But
the orcs are experimentation gone wrong. I don't mean that in a funny sense. I mean that in the sense of like they are a phase that Anu went through and then realized that's not me.
I mean, I guess that wasn't what I drew from it, but you were out of the room at the time, so that's not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just got really confused for a second. Like, wait, what are we talking about now?
Sorry, my mind was still racing on the whole explain what every race is in the dream, based on what we've been talking about.
Anyway,
Altmer are flexible traditionalism. It's traditionalism that is willing.
For that.
What?
Or the yearning for a family that would accept you. Which is really interesting considering that, you know, the Altmer are best known for enshrining a place that may not exist outside of their own imaginations.
Yeah.
Which says super sad things about a lot of trans folk, which are generally true.
So, what's the significance then that it is a Dunmer and Vivek that create this realm
Holy
of
shit, so many gods.
Even in this context, it can be seen as the Chimer are experimentation. Unlike the orcs, the Chimer are experimentation gone right.
But the Chimer are destroyed.
No. Just, listen. Sorry, Mac. I didn't mean to make that sound very rude.
No, go ahead. Let's hear you. I'll hear you.
The Chimer are experimentation gone right. But it can be seen as... What?
Just keep it nice and copacetic, like we'll be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Chimer are experimentation gone right. But it's the equivalent of when you start experimenting with your identity and you realize this is who you are. You get that realization, but then your parents or some similar relative or some similar authority figure tells you, no, that's wrong, and they chastise you for it. And then your perception of that reality changes. It's still you, but it changes in that the Chimer became the Dunmer.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
All right, what I mean is...
Like, Dan, you are like clapping your hands. Like,
yeah, I've got like 8 million ideas.
I'm excited to see what Dan has to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, sweet. Okay. I just didn't want to interrupt, which is probably why I end up being really quiet in these law discussions. Like, I don't know where to jump in. So going along with the idea of the Altmer are wishing for a family that already accepted you and finding that that very much isn't the case with how strict and unmoving a lot of Altmeri culture is. With the Dunmer, you have, you know, what almost always happens with most trans and generally queer folk is that you go and you make your own family. And hang on a second. I thought I was going to bet, did not work out. So once you've done that, though, it is, of course, not going to be exactly the same. That's how you end up with, you know, the Chimer as almost, while also being a rejection of alt-Mary society, it's also a weird mutation of it. Because you can never really get away from what your family's already done to you until you very slowly unpick everything and start from scratch, which is something that's very, very hard to do and would eventually, you know, I personally see that as why Vivek takes so long to be able to be seen and portray themselves as their feminine self. Because you can see for almost the entirety of Vivek's life, they still, while putting forward their intersex nature, they mostly present themselves as a fairly masculinized ideal. And it's allowing yourself to be that vulnerable to take in new information and new truth about yourself rather than basically penetrating others with your truth, that you can finally manage to make yourself, you know, whole and content with yourself. And essentially, that's a lot of words to explain. I don't think that Vivek and therefore the Dreamer can be content with themselves until after they've undone everything that's made them unhappy. And with that basically comes creating the new Dreamer. So I have a lot of fucking thoughts about this.
I love where you're going with this, man.
Thank you.
What do you have anything on why it's that, you know, why it's a Dunmer?
Oh man. Oh boy. So the Dunmer are particularly special mostly because their existence is alteration by a scorning outside force that they then take into themselves as their identifier. So you have like the way that Azura change their skin and eyes and being like, this is the curse that I lay upon you, which they almost immediately go like, no, this is fine. In fact, we really like this, which is very different to say the orcs, where it's just like, you were this beautiful, shining, beloved thing, and now you are filth. No one will ever love you again. And they're just like, yeah, I guess that's right. Which is like
that's just
another kind of like depressingly common route that transgender folk can sometimes take, which is just like, you are told forever that you are undesirable, that there is nothing you can ever do that's going to make you as good and as perfect as you should have been and you would have been if you hadn't become this awful thing that no one accepts. And you just sort of wallow in that internalized hatred, and a lot of times that doesn't always go away. But I do appreciate how the Dunmer have managed to create being enemies with the world as such as like a thing to be proud of and to just be as aggressively fuck you as possible. Which I feel Vivek is very good at in the third era. And just like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to do whatever I want because fuck you. And I have all of these people who are going to love me for it, which is also an important step. But I feel if we're going to continue tying like the events of Vivek's personal journey to that of the Dreamer, this kind of helps explain why the third year ends up what the fuck? Why the red year ends up happening is because eventually that amount of fuck you isn't enough to keep sustaining you and developing as a person. You have to destroy the hug box that you've constructed for yourself so you can actually so like you've given yourself a perfect little echo chamber of people who agree with you. And that's good for healing, but it will constrict you over time. And Vivek knows that eventually you have to take that down and spread acceptance, not just for yourself, but to everyone else who is like you. Like, it's no good just having, say, just Vardenfell or just Morrowind as a whole that is a safe place for people that are like you, which it generally may or may not be. That's up to individual headcanons. you still have to try and do your best to change the world to make it better for other people that are like you, and try and change the people who would have attacked you previously into a more welcoming environment. As a result, you can't just have everyone who is, all of your particular little you can't have your cheerleading squad only cheering for you, You got to kind of try and spread out that ideology throughout as much of the world as possible, so that you can try and save more folks like you and avoid having to become orc-like, basically.
So would their practices of enslaving primarily the Argonians, but also Khajiit and even some humans, be like their attempt? I mean, like, you're trying to do the right thing, but you're doing it wrong.
Oh yeah, like this.
Yeah.
I've overthought this to the point of an art form. So
I love it. I want you to write it down, honestly, and put it somewhere.
I have a few times. The problem is that I keep losing my works in progress. I just have a lot of digital files and paper everywhere.
You read Dan's opinion piece in the Telmora, right?
About Vivek?
Yeah.
The ritual machine.
Yeah, the ritual machine.
Yes, that's what it was called. Yes.
I love that.
Thank you very much.
Probably one of my favorite opinion articles.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, you're a huge reason why I don't just outright hate Vivek.
Oh, little hearts.
Now,
yeah, then there's me. As it currently stands, I don't like Vivek presently. Because, holding an entire island hostage if they don't love you is very much the wrong way to handle things.
I know, and it's great.
But casting the story that Dan's written, and not just Dan, but everybody, I'm just calling him Dan. Calling like the collective Dan. In this story that's being written by the collective Dan, it's sad that Vivek is doing that. It's not. Oh yeah. It's more sad than a place of this anger and bad behavior is coming from. All I want is basic acceptance, and no one gives it to me. And the only time I've even gotten anything close to liking it is when I've literally held it over their heads. And then you start throwing in the fact that I've held this shit over their heads, and then it's, Lyrock and Second Aperture and all that other stuff thrown into.
Man.
So I had two thoughts. One, if the Daedra are emotions, or the Atata generally are emotions, then the races are attitudes and certain, I guess, they're worldviews. That's what they are.
Yeah.
And so when asking why the Dunmer, well, the Dunmer are one of the few races that we know of that started as one thing and became something else. The other being the Orsimer, the orcs. One is a grotesque malformation of what it used to be, whereas the other is this is better. I like this. And so it's two different ideas of this identity. And
but all the races were like that.
What's that?
All the races were like that, though. The Khajiit and Bosmer were. I mean, everybody was once Elno-Fae.
If I might interject there, man. The main difference between the rest and the Orsimer and Dunmer in particular is that the Orsimer and the Dunmer were altered as punishment.
Yeah.
The other.
So, I mean, there's a lot of
time to form into those ideologies.
I think there's a lot of metaphor that we could take. I mean, honestly, we could probably take any race, anything from lore, and we could probably mold it or explain it in such a way that it fits this theory, which is part of what makes subjective lore so great, is it all works. All of it.
I really like this.
What's that?
I was saying I really like this.
Yeah, I mean it's
my favorite interpretation of the dream and the dreamer and the tragedy and all that.
and this is something that like Todd and I had kind of discussed, I don't know, 2 or 3 lore chats ago. So I'd go back and listen to that if you have the chance.
Where is Todd anyway?
He has not seen the link.
Oh.
Why?
He left the group.
Reason.
Oh.
He left the group. He didn't do so willfully.
Oh no.
Sorry,
man.
Not getting into that.
Okay.
It's a complicated and stupid thing.
Back to trans junk?
Yeah, but this was an idea that we had kind of bounced around, and I don't know that I accept that as my headcanon personally.
Well, you don't have to.
But it is very cool, and it is a very poignant and it's got carry to it, which I really like. Speaking as someone who has done like political cartoons in the past, like social commentary is always my thing. And so, I really like the idea. I personally, I prefer the idea that Anu killed his wife and he blames the part of him, the bad parts of him that caused him to do that. He decided to scapegoat those as Padme, and in the dream, that's how that manifested. That's kind of how, that's the bit that I tend to roll with. But
that's why men fuck everything up.
Yeah. So
I like that, but I also like that. I really also, it's interesting that like Padme is the part, you instead of it's his wife, it's his female identity.
Yeah, and I love that. I
like them both. They're both really cool.
I don't know that I 100% accept that as my own, idea of it.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'd like to do is I'd like to run it by Kirkbride, and I'd like to see what he has to say on it, because I know he's, how do I make it sound not bad or politically biased? He's very liberal, and just like me, and so I think he would appreciate that interpretation.
I imagine so.
And so I mean, I would just be interested to see what he has to say about it, because Kirkbride's obviously got his own ideas, and most people, well,
and it's up to us to unpick the weird puzzle box that he's made of his thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us may accept or not accept his ideas for whatever reason, and that's fine. But I'd still be interested to hear what he has to say about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I've heard of other theories and things that he's gone, hey, that's really cool, and so I'd like to hear him say that about this idea. But that's
if you do, and he does like say it's cool, it has to be put into a document, like formally explaining it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, hell, I'd like to see that as an article in the Telmora. I don't know that I would want to write it, because I don't feel that I have the voice or the gravitas to really. I mean, plus I write enough for the Telmora as it is.
Is this another prompt of Dan, write more Vivek things?
I mean, if you'd like to interpret it that way, then yes, absolutely. But
we're not saying yes, but we're especially not saying no.
Yeah. Man. I mean, I don't want you to feel like that you've been pigeonholed into trans issues. We want Dan to talk about that. Like, it doesn't have to be like that at all. Like, that's not.
Well, I can be Dan of many pigeons.
He is Dan, king of pigeons.
I am the over Dan.
The over Dan. Yes, I love it.
The Danish Obersoul.
Also, I'd like to hear,
everyone just slowly becomes Dan.
You'd like to hear what?
Sorry.
I'd like to hear a couple other members of the community, especially in our group. I'd like to hear what they have to say about this. What's funny is I always get like 7 people who say they're going to be here in these chats, and then they never show up when I links and shit. And it's like,
oh man, it's like, what the fuck?
We have an engagement problem in the community. I would say, and I say it lightly.
There's also obviously like time zone issues, like normal, but.
I mean, it could be, but I mean, that's...
Oh yeah, like I know Mike would love to be in on this. He's just across the ocean. That being said, Dan is also across the ocean.
Yeah, but it's also
he's across a different ocean.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing here is like I try to schedule them because it's a Saturday for me, and usually I'm either home alone, like tonight, no one else here, I got no kids to worry about. My wife's at work. Whatever, she works like swing shift at a hospital.
Dude, you're wearing pants, right?
I'm wearing pants? Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go on webcam without fucking pants. But then on every other week, I have my son with me, and he requires my attention. So I usually try to shoot for 8 p.m. my time because that's when I put him to bed, which means he can't come out and fuck everything up.
That is why gods don't have children. It's so that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah. So, I mean...
It tests.
I've done it earlier before when it's been he and I, but...
Like last week?
Yeah, like last week.
He just showed up out of nowhere.
I'm swearing and other people are swearing, and usually I don't let him hear that, but
I mean, that's
I'm not
good.
Gonna tell 15 other people, hey, watch your language, because that's lame. But yeah, it's easier to tell him, no, fuck off for a little bit.
If we could back up for just I don't know, like 16 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Andrew, you said that you had 2 thoughts, and you got one of them out.
All right, one of them out.
You said the auto are emotions.
Yeah.
And that the races are attitudes, worldviews.
Yeah. So if races are races are attitudes or worldviews or ideas or something like that. But I don't know. I got through both of them. The other one.
That was okay.
Yeah, the Dunmer are one of the races that have changed in such a salient way, and comparing that to the Orsimer and the attitude surrounding that change. One is related to literal shit in terms of like Malakath and stuff. The other one is like, oh well, you've been naughty. There you go. Now you're gray with red eyes, and it's kind of badass.
Do you ever feel like a lot of people, especially people who started with Skyrim, sort of have a bias for always siding with the races of men, just because we're humans?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Like you end up with this massive bias. And because you have this massive bias, you automatically presuppose that the race of men is in the right, even when they are 100% in the wrong.
Whoa! Wait a minute. I don't think you can say any one race is entirely in the wrong.
So you're saying that the Alessian Order wasn't the fault of the Cyrodiils who started genociding the races of elves?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I despise Pelin on Whitestrike. He murdered hordes of Khajiit, which is
because he thought they were elves.
There is no greater sin than to wrong the Khajiit in my test world.
Hang on a second. Can we put a pin in that for a sec? Just because Pellinor as future robot, aside from just the concept of blood frenzy and therefore wasn't entirely aware of what was going on, but a robot can generally be assumed to reliably target things, right?
Not really. Here's where we get
great movies.
And the answer is his targeting system just said attack things with pointed ears.
Oh, right. Yeah, I almost had a thought and it sort of collapsed now. But
if the parameters weren't clearly defined, then obviously
No, they were clearly defined. It's just that in the
parameters were just kill. I was just figuring that, like, if the parameters were kill elves and he started attacking Khajiit by accident, wouldn't that almost prove that Khajiit are elves?
Well, I think that's one of those things of like kill elves. All right, now his program needs like some kind of basis of what does an elf look like. Because like you basically just split up into this whole thing of you have men and you have elves. So what is a defining characteristic of elves? Pointed ears. What do Khajiit have? They all have pointed ears.
I mean, fair. That's good enough.
Or at least, like, some of them have rounder ears, but they're still much more pointed compared to human ears.
I think Pelinal's thing... Well, first of all, like, I don't think we can definitively say because Pelinal slaughtered Khajiit, they are therefore elves. I mean, to do that would be to say that Pelinal was absolutely infallible.
Yeah, which he is... I am... Yeah.
So, almost certain. But Dan, I really want to hear your thoughts about this, because in Argonian culture, they don't do it every day, just like, oh, it's Tuesday, I'm bored, let's just switch genders, whatever.
I really want that to be true.
It's just the hiss demands it.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's the thing. Like, I'm like, if how do we reconcile the fact that Anu is not all about them Argonians? If they're like the only race that regularly, regularly relative to everyone else, does change genders.
I think it could be
the Argonians don't really belong here.
All right, I think I have an idea.
I would also say like the Khajiit, they don't change genders, but the Khajiit, like, they're really hard to offend. I mean, you got to like enslave them, like the Dunmer.
Well, here's the thing about the Argonians. I think if we're still within this trans identity kind of thing, the Argonians, their attitude is, well, why shouldn't I be able to do this?
I really like the idea of if Argonian equal hissed from, i.e., like, people from previous or outside of this particular Kalpa, then it would also serve that the Hist and therefore the Argonians have understanding and acceptance of gender variance that is outside the norm for this particular Kalpa.
Oh, so that's why they're enslaved so much. They Dunmer, the Dreamers, I want this so bad. And I would take it by force if I could.
It makes a lot of things make sense, don't it?
It does. It doesn't make it okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Massive disclaimer: Dan does not agree with slavery.
There's only one kind of slavery that's all right, and it's goblins.
What? No. I thought you were going to say, and that's consensually.
That's called
isn't that just a job or indentured servitude?
I was thinking slightly more kinky than
it's that. Called volunteering? Gosh.
I was thinking slightly more kinky, is that what you said?
See, I really love that you went just really pure with it, with like volunteer work, and mine just like, yeah, BDSM immediately.
I mean, my wife and I aren't no saints or anything, but like,
ooh. Yeah. I'm sorry, Dan is in the Lorechat, and therefore something fucking terrible must be said at least once a month.
It's not, no. Dan, all right, I promise this will be the last thing I try to wring out of you on this.
No, please, ring further.
Unless you give it. What are the Khajiit? Because they're just so accepting of everything. Aedra, Daedra, moons, whatever. Like,
they are what Anu aspires to be.
Yes.
Oh,
truly accepting of everyone and themselves.
Oh, say it again.
What Anu aspires to be.
Everyone wants to be a cat. The Aristocats were correct.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
I need to get someone to make me like a little fan music video of the Aristocats set to Khajiit photos. Just take it back to 2006.
A glorious time to be alive.
I like that. That fits really well with why the Dunmer enslaved the Khajiit too. Like, we
the Dunmer take possession of what they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
this means many things. They also tend to take it from each other, but I'm not sure what I make of that yet.
Well, I mean, they also denigrate it, though.
Yeah, it's a little weird that way.
That's this ugly human tendency to what I want but cannot have must therefore suck, so that I don't want it anymore, kind of thing. Yes. It's very high school.
It's super weird, but it also makes a lot of sense in terms of just like the mental gymnastics required of someone trying really hard to make their identity out of the pile of shit that they've had to like internalize throughout their lives. Yeah. Like there's a long period of what the fuckery that tends to come out of it before you hit something solid.
Yeah.
Like I can personally admit this as just like in the period between like not knowing that trans people existed and being a very out non-binary trans person for 8 years, there was a lot of weird shit in the middle to get to here.
I can only imagine.
Surprisingly, quite a few trans guys I knew like had a period of hyper femininity to the point of almost self-parody. And
oh yeah, I can tell you right now that's my friend Wallace right now.
Yeah, it's like either like before or after starting to come out. Like before, you're like desperately trying to like cram down anything that's like not the socially acceptable box that you've been prescribed since you were a child, and then afterwards, it's like for a while you will just reject it outright so that you can put that distance between yourself and what people thought you were, and then afterwards it sort of rubber bands back and you end up like just becoming a flamboyant pile of rainbows and ribbons for a minute while you're trying to just ribbons. That was my case anyway. Like I went very hard back into femgoth just because like I now have a beard, therefore I won't get mammed all the time, so therefore now I can wear a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
And you end up in this very strange place.
Okay. We like fitting in boxes, and I think that's one of our worst traits as people.
It is kind of a human nature sort of thing. Yeah.
I get why. It's just that when that becomes when the walls of the boxes become, if you're not 100% in a box, it's death.
Yeah, often
that's kind of our which a lot of our and the boxes change over time. You know, it's like you don't fit in the correct religion box, death. You don't fit in the correct race box, death. I mean,
I can answer the box thing.
Keiko death.
As we're all no doubt aware, our ancestors a long ass time ago started to get more intelligent. They started to eat food that gave them a lot more energy, gave them more nutrients, so their brains were able to grow. That categorization concept, I feel, comes from a time before we got to that point of now we can really think in the abstract of we categorize things based on general ideas. And you would put them in a certain box of this is what X does, this is what Y does, this is what Z does. So anytime you saw a wolf or something that looked like a wolf, that was in the box of do not mess with that.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, if you saw berries on a bush, that is in the box of, oh, pick those up.
But be careful.
Yes, but be careful. And then eventually we get to the point where we can really start thinking in the abstract. We can start putting things in more individualized containers into more individual spaces, but we still have that holdover.
Oh, yeah.
When we put things into boxes.
And we've also had this, I'm going to call it tribalism. That's not the right word, but just
that was the word I was going to use.
What looks and behaves different from me is scary, and fear makes me angry, and I don't want it around me, kind of thing.
No, I believe that is tribalism.
I think othering is the word you're looking for.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that is what I was looking for. Thank you.
Boy,
this has just been like one of the best lore chats ever. I love it.
So one of the best lore chats ever is also the first lore chat I've been in where there's so few people throughout the entire time.
Well, I feel like that's what makes a good lore chat. You got to have like just the right amount of people so that no one's really talking over each other too much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the weird shit that comes out of my mouth when I'm not just talking about dicks when there's dead air.
Andrew, do you know which lore chat you and Todd were hammering out that thing to begin with?
I want to say it was 2 lore chats ago. So this is lore chat 8, so probably lore chat 6. That's where I would look.
Okay.
That
really vibes with me because I love the idea of the personal journey that it attaches to it. And it's one I can relate to, not on the level Dan does, but it's just so aesthetically beautiful to watch that and to appreciate. Okay, you know the line in Mankar Cameron's speech, "Behold the savage garden"?
Yes.
That, I feel like that's exactly what this dream is. It is gorgeous, but there's just so many terrible things to it that uphold it.
Yeah.
And I think it ends in beauty, like you said, with the Akavir thing, which I've never before said anything positive about Akavir, so that's a first.
Because they're cat people are wrong.
Did someone say cat people are wrong?
No, they're cat people are wrong. They are the incorrect ones.
They're wrong, but they're lying that they're right, so they're right.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with someone in test lore, and they were talking about how, it was veering into like nihilism really hard, and they thought, oh, well, the fact that it's all a dream tells me that none of it matters. And I said,
reductionist, but okay.
You're thinking too small. You're thinking about...
You're thinking in the concept of like eventually Anu will wake up.
Yeah, well, this person was talking about, oh, well, Cal Selmo doesn't matter because he's part of the
Hey, Michael's here.
My character doesn't matter.
Hi, Michael.
But I said, well, what you're missing is that this is part of a larger story. What we are looking at is a metaphor for what's going on in the mind of, and we may say a sleeping god, but whether he's a god or not,
it's not really relevant. To the pieces of his mind, he is, because he's the entire thing.
Which I will quote, who is that? Emerson. Man is but a god in ruins.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
And so, what is divinity? What does that even mean? That's such a term of.
If you ask Molag Bal, it's being able to rape whoever you want. That is divinity.
It's a term of relativity.
If you're sanguine, it's being able to party and then ask Riemann Cyril for tips.
So, Michael, you missed the.
It took you long enough, Michael.
I know. I'm sorry, everybody. It's I'm sorry I'm late.
We are delighted to have you.
It's fine. We also found out we can keep this going for 8 hours.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, I'm down. Yeah.
Doesn't mean it'll be present in the YouTube video, but but we had an interesting thought, which I don't know if you were there about two chats ago when Todd and I were discussing the possibility of the dreamer being a transgendered teenager.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, specifically teenager?
Yeah.
And whether or not teenager is necessary.
Oh, really?
Well, I think teenager in the concept of like still very young mind, still doesn't really understand self.
Yeah, well, and the only real argument we had for teenager was Numidium.
Okay.
Because it's that teenage rebellion and denial and no
in the face of everything despite all
yeah.
Despite all evidence of the contrary.
So I actually have a theory about that. And
cool.
I've been toying with it. Evan had written, when we were doing Landfall Daysir, he did a story, and I can't remember if it ended up in the project or not, but it dealt. Yeah, it was. It was the very first one, and it had where what's his name? Sal has a vision of a young woman in a hospital bed, and that's the dreamer. And that image just stuck with me, and I actually had an idea of a story to explain how she ended up there. and it completely explains everything in the dream.
Everything?
Yeah, it explains why things are the way they are.
Everything?
Just about everything. And all I'll tell you is that it involves a Guns N' Roses song. But
oh, nice.
But I don't have the courage to write it because it's Evan's idea, and I'm sure that he wouldn't mind, but it feels like encroaching.
You have other things to write, like your Namira Lorcan piece.
I'm leaving that to you, bro. Well, actually, I'm leaving that to you and Max, because Max is the Namira guy. His lore is he goes by the name Ty Crow in the community.
Oh, yeah.
And
his name Max on Facebook for a long time.
He does Max Impact on Discord, and he is actually on the Elsewhere project, and he took my Riddlethar and he wrote a Namira version that was basically an antithesis. It's magnificent, and yeah, it's. I can't wait until you guys get to read it.
Max and I were doing some Falmer stuff a few years.
Oh, you're the person. Oh man, that Falmer stuff was so good, so good.
Yeah,
this was the Falmer Coda.
Yeah, I really enjoyed
if you
that.
will.
Did he ever finish a Coda for that?
He didn't. He's out doing real stuff, but man, it was so good. I even referenced it in Landfall Daysir.
Oh, did you?
I did, yeah. In fact, one of the members of Ghost Choir 10 is a snow elf.
Oh, nice.
And in Landfall Daysir, in my story Personae, there's actually a scene dealing with her conflict with one of the paladins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in there, and that was as a pure homage.
Did you ever read the piece I did? It was the Musings of a Fifth Era Falmer, and I was talking about how the Falmer perceived time.
Yes, and I loved it.
I'm glad.
I need more Falmer lore, man. It's all so good.
Of Apocrypha, that was my first one.
Oh man, well it's very promising, and it turned out that the promise delivered in spades, except that it delivered in giant slug monsters that have guns that shoot their own children at people.
I mean, all right. In defense of the Slode, the children aren't sapient yet, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Michael, I've actually it's been forever, and he doesn't seem to be terribly active on Facebook, but I've talked with, you said his name is Max, Ty Crow.
Yeah.
When I shared with him that Words of Clan Mother Naani.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he said that like the bit that I put in there about Namira vibed with some of the stuff he'd thought, so I just kind of ran with my own ideas toward that.
Yeah,
I love her so much.
It's actually it was he changed the way that I look at Namira, because the way that he wrote it, his vision was that Namira is not a negative, it's him and it's the old Yibard, the guy who's the creative director Elsewhere.
Yeah.
They had this idea that Namira isn't a negative figure, but she's actually like, I don't know what a mythological equivalent would be, but basically she's the caretaker of the bent, and she helps them to straighten their tails.
Well,
and you see that as a positive term?
Definitely. Well, right. If you go back, okay, so you gotta understand everything's it's the Arbus, so things are weird. But like if you go back to the Oblivion quest, which to me is the quintessential Namira story. You know, she takes care of her children. She doesn't judge them. She lets them be exactly what they are. And here come these priests of Arche causing trouble. And we were killing priests, but they're the ones who insinuated or began the violence. She's just answering it, which I'm not saying that that's right. But
the priests are even torturing them. I mean, they've lived forever in darkness, and all of a sudden they're bringing this torchlight.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt.
For them, that's torture, and so to her, that's abusing her children, and so she has to protect them, and she sends you to do it. Now, I don't remember the Namira quest in Skyrim. It has been years.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
All right. So what you do? You go into a crypt. A cannibal woman shows up and insinuates that you have indeed eaten someone before.
I remember that.
And you can answer in a myriad of ways. You never outright say that she's correct, though.
Right.
Then you follow along. You hope her kill some Draugr because it's Skyrim. Of course, you gotta go to some place and kill some Draugr.
Of course.
Then she asks you to bring a priest of Arche over to the crypt, and her mistress will take care of the rest. So you bring the priest of Arche over to the crypt.
The crypt is the Namira's shrine.
Yeah, it's a shrine to Namira. He gets onto the shrine. You kill him, and then you eat him.
I remember that now.
Delicious.
I'm trying to remember who had pointed it out. Someone had done a thing talking about how, like, of all Daedric princes, Namira is the one single prince who should absolutely never be worshipped.
Oh, you're talking about Fudge Muppet.
Yeah, I think that might have been
Their video on her was literally titled, You Do Not Worship Her, which I find so offensive.
Well, like, they had a good point in that she literally only cares about those who are scorned by society. She only cares about those who are disgusting.
No.
And the moment you stop being disgusting, she doesn't care anymore.
There's no evidence for that.
Well, for starters, what about in Oblivion? You have to have a specific negative fame score to even start her quest.
Look what happened the last time that, like, positive, quote-unquote, positive, socially acceptable people showed up. They walked into Anga and started tormenting the innocent people that lived there. So, they're having a bad day.
Have a little bit of a bad day.
I think Namira is the one who kind of who strives to complete Lorcaj's dream. Or work, if you will.
Yeah. I don't agree with that, though. Not in the sense that I don't think that's what she's doing. I just don't think she should do it.
That's because you're one of those pro-Elven guys.
That's because I believe Lorcan was an asshole, yes.
No. Lorcan is best.
Look, man, Lorcaj and Lorcan are not the same. The Khajiit said so.
There's actually a quest line that addresses that subject. Except it's based on Azura.
Azura and Azura.
Is it? And okay, so you know what? Why the heck not? Let's talk about it. So I won't talk about Azura because spoilers, but let's talk about this idea. So, oh hey, somebody's got a cat.
Hey.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I switch back to this window every once in a while. Dan, you're awesome. Just saying. So, we see many different interpretations of gods and Daedra in Tamriel. So, what's the deal with that? So, when you summon Azura, I'll use her as an example, but we don't have to use her to talk about her because spoilers. When you summon Azura in Arena, she's a Breton. And she's really extremely vain. And she's like, yeah, you just need to do this for me. And, it's really not cool.
Hold on, wait. Are you sure you mean Arena? Because I was pretty sure
there might be Daggerfall.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think there were Daedric princes in Arena.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, it was Daggerfall.
Yeah. Daggerfall is when they started to move away from just general fantasy.
Right. So it was Daggerfall. Yeah. Then you get to Morrowind, and she's a Dunmer, and there's a very different vibe. And she's been fairly consistent since then.
Yeah.
But
I can give an answer.
What the heck is going on with that? And in ESO, depending on which zone you're in, she can be more nasty. So what's going on there? Are there different?
It's the concept of vanity.
but I would say that that's not the Nimic. That's not her Nimic or her central self.
No. I mean that part of her personality is vanity, but there's a difference in terms of how you define vanity.
Right. But
wait,
so
like there's a very big difference between talking about vanity now in the 21st century versus talking about vanity in the 1200s.
Yeah, and
vanity in the 1200s wasn't a bad thing.
Well, and oh boy, okay, I don't want to get too far into this, but so you're talking to a guy who loves the Book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, and in the Book of Ecclesiastes, the refrain is vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And that word in Hebrew is habel, and it means emptiness.
Futility.
And how you connect emptiness and what we think of as vanity is a subject for a whole other
Lorechat.
So there's something. My point is that from Daggerfall to Morrowind and then in ESO, depending on which of her quests you're doing, she's different, and that's somewhat true for some of the other princes. Like Barbas goes through some pretty radical changes.
Yeah, you know? Barbas is in ESO. He is drastically different from the last 2 times we've seen him.
I'm like, this is not the scamp that said, I don't want to work, I just want to bang on my drum all day, and sold me stuff at a good price at Morrowind. This is not the same guy. What's going on here?
This is not the guy who convinced me to not let part of Clavicus Vile's power go back to him.
Right. This is not the dog that followed me in that broken quest in Oblivion. I was like, dude, you really need to. You don't trust the master. He's a bad dude. This is not the same guy. So what's going on there? And I think that there's a couple different options that we can look at. And one is that there are multiple Daedra that are called, let's say, for example, Barbas. There are Barbae, or there are Azur AE. So there's multiple ones. That gets really complicated. Do they act different depending on who they're talking to? That, I think, is an interesting idea. What other ideas can you all come up with? What would explain these radical differences?
Cultural perceptions of a single entity.
I kind of like the concept that there's more than one Barbas or there's more than one Azura. And I say this, and this is going to tie back to when I was talking about the Vigilant mod earlier. One interesting concept that the author of that mod came up with in chapter 4 of the mod is the idea that all of the Nordic gods, none of them were gods to start out with. They were all heroes, or they were either great heroes or great champions. For instance, Junal was this great wizard who stole magic from Magnus, but he perfected what he was doing, and thus he got absorbed into Julianos.
Nice.
But as a result, because Junal was once his own thing, when Julianos interacts with someone who would see him as Junal, he acts as Junal. A similar thing could be seen if you were to say, like, perhaps Ariel was once just a champion of the old Elnofe, but he got absorbed into Akka. Which is a bit of a weirder stretch to go with. But I think you see my point there.
I do.
I have a theory.
Go on.
Yes, I think that makes sense. Okay, so I like the idea of several Barbae? Many Barbases.
Yeah, it would be Barbases.
Yeah, but aside from probably bad writing, then the idea of ESO's Barbas being that in comparison, yeah, but in particular a very active asshole. And this is interesting to me because, like, the other Barbases that we meet, for one, they're always dogs, almost always, not counting scamp times. But in any way, they're always some kind of like a lesser shape. They never achieve human shape again, to the best of my knowledge, unless I'm forgetting something. So this being much earlier in the timeline, it kind of makes sense that that Clavicus experimented with the idea of having Barbas, who is more or less a fragment of himself in my own headcanons, which I'll probably get to at some point, being much more active, an agent in the world, and then finding out, oh, wait, that's probably a terrible idea. Maybe we should limit the amount of power and agency this little fuck actually has, because he's definitely going to stab me in the back because he is part of me, and that's what I do. So,
by the way, in reference to Barbas being a dog, I posted a link in the chat of what Barbas looks like when he's wearing his equipment.
Yeah, he still looks like a dog, which I find really interesting. And I feel like
he always has that dog motif, because it's the whole concept that Barbas is the loyal hound of Clavicus Vile. But even then, even at times when he's screwing over Clavicus Vile, it's just because he's Vile's dog. Sometimes your dog might screw you over because your dog doesn't want you to change too much.
Oh man, this brings up my headcanon that I had before the main quest of ESO Morrowind came out and sort of shot a few holes in it. But the idea being that Barbas is the excised part of Clavicus Vile that contains loyalty. It's like anything that could possibly be good about him, in terms of just the faithfulness that is intrinsic to dogs, that all gets separated out from Clavicus and just put over there where it can't really do any damage.
Because it would mess up him doing deals, right?
Yeah. So, you can't have a conscience when you're a used car salesman. So basically the idea being that Clavicus has just sent his conscience as far away as possible, but he has to still keep tabs on him because, it's still a part of his power in the same way that Umbra was. But I don't know what to make of that exactly. Like a lot of my headcanons, it's sort of malformed at the end and starts to fall down.
That's okay.
Yeah, how does that kind of generally hold up? It may or may not, admittedly. But yeah, ESO Barbas is interesting specifically because it's like
it's the over-eager loyal dog.
Yeah, it's like the puppy version that just didn't quite.
It's the puppy version that's trying to make Master happy.
Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting idea. If we have a cycle of Barbas where it's just it's not ever just the one Barbas forever. It's like a cycle of every now and then your puppy grows up wrong and you have to kill it and start again. And then eventually found out that the stablest form of Barbas is, a fairly small to middling sized dog that can't do much.
Well,
I mean that's the.
Bear in mind.
Go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
Barbas and Clavicus Vile are two parts of the same entity.
Right.
And so, then we get into the psychology of Clavicus Vile himself. The only reason I think that Barbas shows up as a dog is that Clavicus Vile feels the need to be master of something. And
being a master over a dog is the easiest.
Yeah, he wants to feel like he's getting the better end of the deal. And so the only way to do that is to perpetually split himself up, and some part of him has to get the worst end of the deal. Whenever I finish my piece on dualities, something I'm going to point out is that almost every prince, if not every prince, is both their own antithesis and the object of their sphere itself. So Molag Bal, I think, is the easiest to point out because, Molag Bal and Clavicus Vile, because Molag Bal is, he's all about domination and rape and all that. He can't not do that. And because of that, he is a slave to his nature. He is the quintessential slave. He's also the quintessential master. Whereas Clavicus Vile is, quintessentially on top and quintessentially on bottom. He is a dog. That's a term that we've used for decades. Oh, you dirty dog. That's that's what this part of Clavicus Vile is. And so Clavicus Vile more cleanly showcases this duality of consciousness, I guess.
I really like this.
And so that's kind of my thought. So I really should finish this bit on duality. I talk a lot about Vivek in the very beginning, but I haven't worked on it in a few weeks. But I should do that.
Something I think is rather interesting. This isn't really related to any overarching lore theory. This is mostly just related to story stuff in ESO. Obviously, in ESO, the shrines you'll ever see of Clavicus Vile are very much based off of how they designed the shrine in Skyrim. So it's Clavicus Vile holding the mask aloft, his faithful hound by his side. What I think is rather curious is that at the end of the Morrowind storyline, you get to see a different version of that shrine. It's almost exactly the same, except now Clavicus has brought the mask down upon his own face. Because the end of the Morrowind storyline is kicking off the second half of the Daedric War.
I missed that.
It's the second half of when Mephala, Nocturnal, and Clavicus Vile are really kicking it into high gear.
Got your second pot on.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Oh.
So let me throw out to make things even more complicated. In what way, or to what degree, or is it possible that mortal mythopoesis has an effect upon Daedra?
Mythopoesis being gods are shaped by how you view them, right?
Yeah, basically. That mortal belief actually shapes the divine.
I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if they even do shape it that much. Or if the Daedric princes are instead just their own thing. Yes, they represent that great overarching ideal of whatever their sphere happens to be. But on that same vein, they don't seem that affected by everyone else. They don't seem that affected by mortal worship. Because I mean, especially look at Periite. Periite is very rarely ever worshipped by anyone, but he's still himself.
Right.
He's still himself. He still has the same level of power he's always had. Jigalag is never worshipped by anyone, and he's still himself when he's not Sheogorath. Except when he's Sheogorath. But then the ending of Oblivion makes things weird, where he may or may not be free.
Right.
All right. Basic little thought, just to add on for you. So if the Daedra are best described as the I keep saying words that aren't words. The encompassment of emotion, like an individual sphere of emotion and how primal level that can be taken to, then it kind of makes sense that the Daedra don't really acknowledge their worshippers all that much, considering, like, have you ever tried to, like, logic yourself down from wanting to punch someone? Like,
yeah.
Your emotions don't really pay any attention to your own conscious thoughts. It's just like, this is a thing that's going to happen to you now. So in that framework, Daedra actually make a bunch of sense. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what Michael was saying, and I realized it wasn't.
Sorry, Karen's talking to... Who do you have?
Bran.
And I thought that might be probably coming over.
I'm seeing his eyes. There you go.
Yeah, that's true.
Was that okay? Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Dan. Could you repeat that? I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Repeat from where? I'm not sure where I was up to.
I'm not sure where I lost you. There was a piece of fluff in my ear.
Repeat from the entire beginning.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. So, okay. Theory being that if the Daedra each encompass a raw and primal emotional state, then it makes perfect sense that the Daedra wouldn't really acknowledge or care about their worshippers very much, on the concept of, have you ever tried to like logic yourself down from any strong emotional state? Your emotions don't really respond to that in any particular way, with the possible exception of flattery, which is what makes Azura really interesting to me. Which is probably why Azura responds to her worshippers more often than others.
That is a very interesting perspective. You should definitely run with that.
You're right.
Who responds more, Daniel?
Azura. Azura responds very well to flattery.
In fact, it's mandatory. Otherwise, something bad's going to happen to you.
You know, the thing is, people with, like, all these, like, if you, don't insult Azura because she gets mad, no Daedric prince responds positively to fuck you. I mean,
maybe.
Sanguine responds. Sanguine responds positively to it.
No,
and
he takes that
responds
as an
neutral to it.
invitation.
Sanguine says,
my point is, like, if you respond in a non-compliant manner, they don't like it.
That's true, but then why would you?
No.
You ask someone to do something, they don't do it, and they tell you to go fuck yourself.
Like, I fully believe...
People use that to, look, Azura said this in Daggerfall. That must mean she is vanity incarnate and nothing else. I'm like, you read what the other ones say, right? Like, none of them say anything.
That's not what I meant.
I mean, fucking in Daggerfall.
I'm not pulling from y'all. I'm pulling from past conversations I've had. Me and Todd really get into it, and James, we really get into it about Azura.
Oh, I can imagine.
In fucking Daggerfall, Sheogorath is in Aetherius, so I'm not sure we should take Daggerfall as a be-all, end-all for a lot of things.
I love the batshittery of Daggerfall lore. I kind of miss some of it. That and Battlespire actually contain some of my favorite lore bits.
I will make the following argument for Peryite and Sanguine. I will say that if you said "fuck you" to Sanguine, he would say "yes, please."
Yeah, he would
respond positively to it.
He would be very pleased about it.
Peryite, on the other hand, simply would not care. Peryite is the taskmaster. He has more important things to look at. If you say "fuck you" to him, he probably would.
Daggerfall?
I'm not sure if he says anything.
They all say something. Like,
Peryite's busy building a plague.
Let us find out.
Peryite is a scrawny nerd.
But so many people hate
Peryite
Azura.
is a spindly dragon.
I cannot get on board with that. And the Lorechat here is one of the few other people that actually like her.
Who is Azura?
Yes.
Yeah, Michael and I are like two of the only people that like Azura.
Yeah.
I mean, other people find her interesting, but they hate her. And just can't get her.
Okay, here's something interesting. In cut dialogue and text from Daggerfall, Peryite is described as the most affable of the Daedric princes with the worst reputation.
Yeah.
That's legit. That's legit because Peryite is the operations manager.
Yeah.
Peryite is the guy, or even better, this goes back. A friend of mine worked in supplies. He was the guy you would send your order to if you needed pens, right? And what did he call himself? He called himself the supply Nazi. What he would do if somebody would be like, "Oh, hey, I missed my order day by an hour," or "I missed my yes, I was supposed to have my order in yesterday and I didn't, but I need these 6 reams of paper," and he would go on this long thing about, "What are you talking about? Oh no, now I've got to call these people in Brazil and they're going to have to ship this to us at like 20 times price. What am I going to do? What am I going to do?" And the person is flipping out and they're writing emails to their manager, and a manager writes to us, says, "I don't know what's going on. I told them it was fine."
All right.
That's Perryite.
In the first edition to the Pocket Guide to the Empire, it states that Perryite's foundation is falling rock. There is apparently an ancient shrine to Perryite located on the Somerset Isles that depicts the Altmer fighting slug-like creatures, according to a section on the Isles in Kind's Challenge.
So slowed, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be slowed.
All right. Let us now read from Perryite's quest. We're pulling it all the way back to the beginning of the lore chat when I was just reading things.
Okay.
Actually, this is a fun way to keep the lore chat going. We just read stuff and then react to it.
Breaking the spell. Perryite speaks to you. You can't really have too much power, can you? Player's first name. You look a lot like someone I used to know, but that was back during your first era, so it couldn't very well be you, could it? Now then. What?
Sorry, I was channeling my inner Gautier.
Good. Now then, if you'd like, I can give you a little shield of mine called the Spellbreaker. It will certainly give you the power you want, but first, I need some proof of your seriousness. If you accept, he will go on to say, excellent. It's wonderful seeing a player's race with clear objectives. So rare in this day and age. Now then, there's this ancient vampire, frankly a vampire, who I know you'd hate. Thoroughly stupid, unattractive, and mean-spirited sort. He needs to go on a one-way trip to you-know-where. Then, after you take care of that unpleasant business, go visit my friend, Worshipper's name, a charming Worshipper's description, who will meet you at a building in town. Now, I don't want to rush you, but I can't ask him/her to wait more than time limit days for you. And just getting to the dungeon may take a good while, so you ought not dawdle along the way. Worshipper's name will be happy to show you the Spellbreaker. Now, I've prowled on long enough. It's been a pleasure. So Perryite's a very nice person.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the nicest managers I've ever had.
On the other hand, if you decline to say, changed mind, don't feel bad. It's a sign of maturity to be brave enough to say no. Just give me a call if you ever change your mind. I know you will.
Oh, bless.
I know you will.
Love this.
Sounds like a salesman.
Yeah.
I know
Why
you will.
am I picturing the Vault Tech salesman from Fallout 4?
Probably because of how I read it.
Probably. I need a Skyrim mod now. It's just
did did y'all settle on Michael's question?
What was the question?
He was asking about the princes acting differently.
I believe we settled on the concept that no, they won't.
No, they won't what?
They will not act differently depending on how people view them, because they are emotion. They would, when you look at the Aedra, for instance, they are not emotion. They are concepts. They are concepts that can be affected by logic. Meanwhile, emotion is the thing that's very hard to logic out.
I mean, Andrew's point is that all of the Ada are emotions. Right, Andrew? Okay, yeah, he nodded.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea. And I actually shameless self-promotion. I actually talked about it in one of my Codeverse stories that the Ada are the emotions of the dreamer, and that I suggested that there are more, not just the ones we know about.
Oh,
but
no,
that's an ongoing theme of mine. But
yes, more.
I really,
there are probably tons of Ada out there. It's the same concept as there's probably more Daedric princes than we actually know of.
So there's 16, possibly 17 princes, but there's tons of Daedric lords.
Yeah, there's tons of Daedric lords. Many who we don't know about don't interact with us.
Remember, we know that Ariel requested Anuiel to accept them back, and he said, "No, I've filled your places with somebody else."
Right. That's the thing that I used to build a Khajiit Denwi.
A what?
Hang on, I'll put a link in the chat. It's one of my stories, and It takes place in the 10th and 11th eras.
I know what I'd love to get your opinion on while you're doing that is I was talking with some folks earlier, and they were talking about how Fatomai is a rapist, and Honor's anger is justified. Maybe his violence isn't, but his rage is. I'd love to get your take on that.
I could see that, maybe.
I could see that. I'm going to put this in the Facebook chat because Google Hangouts is evil. Maybe. I think there's several different ways that we've interpreted Padme. That's one of them. I still am very partial to the one that I came up with, which is a Ligian view, which is really pretty fun. And Evan has spoken very kindly about it. But
is that the one where she's the clan mother archetype?
No. Have you guys read what do they call it? Mother of All?
I haven't.
It's short. I'll read it to you. Give me a minute. But the idea that Padme is a rapist, I can totally see how that would work.
No, not Padme. Fatomai, specifically from Words of Clan Mother Anisi.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, no, not Padme, Fatomai. And that Honor, his anger is justified. His violence may or may not be, but his rage is, unquestionably, is the interpretation they went with.
I would have to look very closely at the text. I think that the way the text puts it is that she tricks him into making her pregnant.
Now, they're saying that's essentially rape.
Okay.
My counter argument. What? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say my counter argument to that is if we're going with the cat theme of sex equals ovulation, copulatory induced ovulation and all that.
Yeah.
Then to have sex is to have children. And at most, what Fatomai did is get Honor so hot and bothered that he said, "Screw it, let's just, whatever. I don't want any more kids, but whatever. Let's just do it." And then he gets angry once he's had time to cool down. And so the trick wasn't that she so much deceived him or anything. It's just that she kind of didn't play fair, so to speak, which is a very Khajiit thing to do. Yeah. And they never satisfactorily refuted that to me.
So in my kind of take on the Khajiit creation mythos, the problem with Honor is that he becomes angry and he strikes Fatomai, and that sends the proto-Khajiit Errata into exile, and that's kind of why there's that whole looking for our place in all places kind of vibe.
You think he exiled the whole family?
Well, I think they ran. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. I mean, we can go as deep or not into this as you want, but it's a pretty common. It's a pretty well. Wait till you hear what I say because it's dark and disturbing. It's a pretty common thing in abusive family systems that when the mom flees, some or even all of the children will flee with her. Mm-hmm. And in Anisi, what it says is the children went with her to protect her.
Yes.
And that is a very common theme in abusive families, that the children will try to protect the abused parent, who is almost very, very frequently the mom. Okay, so where I had said when we did the lore cast was that the problem was Anwar had a zero-sum view of love. That is, there's only so much love to go around. Because as he says, if we have too many children, it'll ruin or steal our joy. Let's not have any more kids. And that idea of the zero sum of love is like kind of his whole problem. But that may have been where it began. But then this idea Fatomai has that it's okay to trick him into getting pregnant again, that's not great either. So I feel like in that section of the story of Fatime and Anor, that there's stuff we're not being told. What's going on there? Why does he feel that it's not going to be enough love? Another thing that you see in family systems is that in heterosexual relationships, fathers will often feel put out because the mom is spending so much time with the child that there's less time for him. And it's a common thing that men have to process as dads, and that's a whole other. But is it that? Is there something else going on? I'm not sure.
I think she might be trying to fix the broken family by having more children. Personally,
maybe. I mean, it's when you start to pull in all of that kind of family system stuff, that story gets really deep and kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Hang on a second, guys. Hang on, just a minute. I'll be right back.
Andrew, what are you posting? Oh, the Khajiit Codeverse.
Oh boy.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, the post and the thing is my link to my Khajiit Codeverse story. And in that, I posit that the things that, well, it would be Anor, but Anu replaced the Et'Ada with are what I call the second children of Anu. And they're not good because when Anu is left by his children, there's a lot of anger and a lot of resentment. And so what comes out of him are those emotions, and those are the second children of Anu. And he can't bear to look at them because they remind him of all of his pain, so he leaves them. And that kind of lore nugget is what that story is based upon. So anyway, but going back to the Anor Fatime, I'm very hesitant to suggest that Fatime rapes Anor. I can see where people would get that idea. I don't think there's enough evidence in the story to say that. There's, and I mean, we can break that down as far as you want. Like, do Fatime and Anor only mate to have children? Do they mate for love? Because if they mate for love, then it's, it's just, oh, it's happy time, there's nothing, there's nothing for him to think about. But if it's a thing where they only mate to have offspring, then the trick could be seen as more malicious and rapey. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. I'm very hesitant to I can't agree with it. But I do see where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, I do want to completely mess with everybody, and because why not? I'd like to read my Lig creation myth, the mother of all.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Some of you have heard this before. It goes like this: the mother of all, a myth of Lig. The first ones were brothers, Anu and Padme, light and dark, stasis and change, purity and corruption. They entered the void believing themselves worthy to fill its emptiness, and time began. As Anu and Padme labored, from their interplay was created Nur, the mother of all. They beheld her beauty and each desired her for themselves, but Nur was aloof. She wandered the wheel, learning its mysteries, and her heart was filled with the glory of the void. Only then did she return to the brothers. Anu spoke kindly, if proudly, but Padme boasted of his prowess. Both were fair of form, yet she chose Anu and abided with him for a time. These three worked together building the Arbus. Anu's light gave reason and mythotexture. Padme gave his passion and joy. But Nur crafted its beauty and knew the patterns that made it whole. Over time, Nur understood the brothers, and while she cared for Anu, she saw that Padme was more to her liking. He was envious of his brother and often praised her beauty, professing his desire for her. At this time, Anu became jealous and declared his ownership of her and her love, naming himself her one and only. At this, Nur's anger kindled in her pride. So in the dark beyond the Orbis, she summoned Padme with promises of lust, and there made use of him. Afterwards, he too declared ownership of her and her love, so she cast him aside, seeking the void. Only later would she find she was pregnant with a new creation, though she could not guess which was the father. She returned to Anu, announcing her actions, and his wrath was great. He struck her many times, calling her unclean, betrayer, and mother of unfaithfulness. At that moment, Padme found them, and the brothers fell to violence, both proclaiming himself her true lord and lover. But Nur had taken all the pride of Anu and all the passion of Padme into her heart, and looked on them with disgust. Thus did she forge of her disgust a razor, and with it she slew them, saying, I have created a new thing called murder, for I have no need of lesser beings. The spilled blood of Anu became the Aedra, who were prideful and claimed ownership of creation. The shed blood of Padme became the Daedra, who lust after creation to spite their brethren. And the Aedra took the body of Anu and made a place for themselves, naming it Nirn in mockery of the mother. And the Daedra made of the corpse of Padme the many realms of oblivion. When the time had come for her to be delivered, Nur remembered her disgust and rage, seeing in the child a mimesis of the fathers and bearing their weakness. She took the razor to her own flesh, carving the child from her body, and dissembled it. With its limbs she made the 4 moons. Its head she hung in the sky, a mockery of Anu's light. The blood became the biters, of whom we do not speak. But the heart she filled with all her hate and placed it within Nirn, making a shadow of the Aedra's creation, saying, This is the heart of my heart, and it will be an eternal wound upon Nirn. Out of it shall flow all corruption, despair, and hate, for this is the true meaning of creation. Out of this heart grew a city and many lands, and she named them Lig. So the mother rested from all her labors.
Dark much?
Fuck the drag. Fuck the drag, grab the butter.
At one point, I totally thought you were going to say the true meaning of Christmas.
I'm not going to lie. I was kind of hoping for that, too.
You're kind of hoping for that, too. No, that's a different story.
Well, listen, man. All I'm saying is, fuck the drag. Let's get some butter. Look, they're crustaceans, and they live in the sea. Clearly delicious.
Obviously. Ocean bugs are the tastiest.
I love me some sea bugs.
Exactly.
Ugh, again with the
Don't you
bug.
love some lobster?
Also, I'm eating leftover pork chops, and they are delicious.
Oh, look at that. You're not eating bugs. I wonder why. Because they're gross.
Bugs.
Ugh.
Tasty
Sick
bug.
of Tamriel and its bugs.
God, all these bugs everywhere.
They're
I'm going back
everywhere.
to Somerset. I'm going back to Somerset. I can't handle this.
It's all right.
Honestly,
they farm
the
beetles
place
in Somerset.
I know, that's what I'm saying. The place I have found the fewest bugs was Cold Harbor.
That's too
Wait,
fun,
what about
right?
Ivea?
Huh?
What about Ivea?
I only have the base game, so I don't know where Ivea
Ivea is in the base game.
You mean our town?
Where is it?
No, Ivea, you get it at the end of the Mage's Guild quest line.
Oh, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Freaking at the end of the Mage's Guild quest line, you get Shalador's Island of Ivea back, and it was an island he had bought from Somerset, but it's like far east or far west of Tamriel, and it's pretty far north of Somerset. But it is just this tiny little island that belongs to the Mage's Guild now.
Yeah, man.
Also, I'm pretty sure if I go to Somerset, the only bugs you'll find would probably going to be like torch bugs or something. if even that.
There are dudes who literally they heard Beatles, and that's a reference to Kirkbride writing.
Mm.
What is it with him and Bugs? Like, you're friends with him.
Bugs.
Why?
Because Bugs are neat.
What do you mean, why not? Because they're disgusting.
Bugs are weird. Like,
you're disgusting.
How many fans are? See, because here's the thing. Kirkbride and Coleman, their whole thing was getting away from fantasy tropes. How do we do that? Oh, bugs.
Be weird.
Bugs.
Shitload of bugs.
That's how we
I mean, honestly, like a lot
let's
of
be honest
Morrowind...
here. At the time that Morrowind came out, how many fantasy series had just a shit ton of bugs everywhere?
And honestly, like all of the creature designs and such for Morrowind are basically just like Cambrian explosion nightmare, which is a really good basis for making something fucking weird. And yes,
and that's one of those areas that is just not explored in fantasy, except in D&D. And so it's weird and fun. And who doesn't want to have xenomorphs? Come on,
me.
Oh, come on. You know you want a race of Daedric xenomorphs that are like, all right, human, we have something for you to do, and if you do it, we will not eat you alive.
The xenomorphs, the thing is that they're everywhere. They are everywhere.
So awesome.
Everything is bugs.
Yeah,
particularly in Morrowind, which is one of the things I just despise about the place.
Am I right in thinking you don't like bugs, Mac?
You are indeed correct.
Silt Striders.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
your bus is a giant bug.
That is my pet peeve.
I really like the idea of you as just like
howl. The Silt Striders' howl is the greatest source of nostalgia for me. Yeah, and they're like echoes. And you're like, I'm home.
It's also really easy to synthesize if you need a bunch of them. We should just get like humpback whale songs and run them backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mac, you've given me ideas now, and that's a terrible idea. I really want to write a story about like some Imperial dude rolling up on Morrowind for a placement, and he just happens to be absolutely like pissingly scared of bugs, and no one's told him that, by the way, your life is gonna suck.
We all arrive at Saint Denis. We all just step outside, and Mac immediately runs back in.
Yeah,
I'm living on the boat.
The boat's my home now.
And then someone tells them about like water bugs, and just nope, fuck, not.
Mac, just pet the Nick socks.
No. It looks like the devil.
They are awful, all of them. I mean, the only ones that I find cool are the giant scorpions that I've seen in Reaper's March and Hammerfell.
No, I actually really don't like them. So like, fair.
Why?
I don't know why. I think it's just because scorpions.
They're acceptable.
I think it might just be a personal issue when I was at a weekend.
The spider ones don't bother me.
Arachnids.
Yeah. But yeah, the arachnids don't bother me. It's the insects.
That's funny. Mine's always been kind of the other way around, but then Australian.
Well,
arachnids are not your pals, except when
you live on Vardenfell, my man.
The bugs are the least of your problems.
Michael,
the library in the suburb I used to live in got shut down the other day because they found a snake in it, like a very venomous one.
Y'all have non-venomous ones?
I mean, a couple, but like of the 10 most venomous snakes in the world, 8 of them live here.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Michael, you missed something that I thought you would appreciate hearing. Chuck and Dan both said it. That in the dream, particularly in the dream as interpreted as it's the dream of someone struggling to accept their transgender identification, is that the Khajiit are what everyone aspires to be, in that they are accepting of everyone. Aedra, Daedra, male, female, beast, man, elf, whatever.
I like it. So actually, I don't know if we've talked about this or not, or I'm pretty sure that I've talked about it before. But so my kind of the interpretive schema that I use for the whole thing is based on Jungian dream, the Jungian dream theory, and that the dreamer, that all of this stuff is subconscious projections from the dreamer, who is trying to sort through their stuff, and to kind of borrow some terms and metaphors from Joseph Campbell, the Dwemer or the terrifying father face, which says, you need to suck it up, kid. Stop fooling around your dream. Wake up and deal with your friggin' problems. Very harsh, very nasty. The Khajiit are the mother that says, it's going to be okay. You can do this. It's going to be all right. And the trick is that, via Jungian psychology, that the terrifying father face, who is in mythology usually associated with God, and the mother are actually one and the same. And that is why the Khajiit are actually the children of the Dwemer. No, I'm kidding. Anyway.
You almost had me.
It was a meme. They had Keanu Reeves. Anyway, but no, that's so where I'm going with that then is that the Khajiit function. They're like a Bard from the mod calls the Main, who is kind of the embodiment of this idea of love, as a virus that moves from Kalpa to Kalpa. And I and misinterpret that as that the Khajiit are the love and the acceptance and all of that kind of inner edification and all that kind of stuff of the dreamer, trying to say, man, it's going to be okay. You can face your problems. You don't have to do it right now, but it's okay. You're going to make it. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now.
No, man, keep going. Oh, wow.
But that's if we're going really meta, and I tend to go meta. That's my instinct, but not everybody's into that.
100% meta bullshit.
Dan, I think yours is my favorite so far as interpreting the dream.
Well, thanks.
The overdance.
Yes, it is the cycle of Dan. Everyone will eventually just become Dan.
I refuse. I will never have a beard.
So you say.
You wear your beard on the inside.
So once I said, and now I have one.
I refuse the beard.
So I once said.
I refuse the hair.
Am I just right to assume that you're actually just completely hairless?
No.
Just out of spite?
No, here's the thing. I'm completely hairless except for eyebrows and a massively long mane of hair. I am the true mane.
Nice.
Not massively long. It's like halfway down my spine.
Now forever, I'm just going to assume that I'm talking to just like a walking ball of hair.
Maybe.
Well,
orbiting in space.
The third moon is a giant hairball. It's the Death Star, but it's also
hello, baby.
It's the dark moon.
Hey,
wait a minute.
Come here.
That's not
Are you scared of the lightning?
Death Star?
Death Star dark moon, yes.
Let me see if I can find the picture. I have a great. Hang on. I'll put it in the chat. I have a great picture that I never shared with you all. This never happened.
It's okay.
It's an Elsewhere mod thing. I never did this.
Absolutely not.
No, wait, it's not there. I gotta find it. Give me a minute. I might not have it.
While he's looking for that, Dan, this just validates me so much for why I just absolutely despise the races of elves, and I don't like the men very much, but I love the orcs, Argonians, and Khajiit.
Yeah, man.
They're the most fun. Also, sorry I'm down here and my cat is freaking out because of the thunder.
Mac, how dare?
Excuse me?
How dare?
I can't hear you, Knife Ear. Speak up.
Oh,
calling me a knife ear when like two of your races have knife ears.
There you go.
The orcs reject themselves as elves.
Yeah, but they still have pointed ears. The Khajiit have one fucking first look of Khajiit just look like Bosmer.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
But they're not.
And then your third group just doesn't technically have ears.
They have ears. They're just not external.
Yeah, I meant that they don't have external ear parts.
Well,
okay.
They do not get to have the glory of ear.
No earrings for you.
Yes, no earrings for you. Only. Actually, what do they have? I know they have eyebrow piercings. I think they also have cheekbone piercings.
Yeah, they can also like pierce
Argonians.
and touch. Calm down, baby. Calm down. It's all right.
Yeah, I think. Actually, come think of it, I don't think Argonians do. I want to say they don't do a lot of piercings.
That's because they have so many bones coming out of their face.
They have some, yeah. At least in ESO.
Well, like, they have bones coming out of their face, but that isn't specifically a piercing. That could very well just be their bones.
No, I'm saying, like, no, instead of piercing as facial adornment, they have bones.
Okay.
Yes. Grow the bone further.
There she goes.
And feathers.
Yes, and feathers.
And occasionally fins.
The Argonians are the second best race.
You only say that because they're the meta for staying alive.
What?
In ESO, yeah.
What do you mean?
In ESO, Argonians have they have racial passives that just make them god tier at staying alive.
Oh, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
They are born with innate knowledge of BG lyrics.
What is it, like they're the best clerics or something?
No. I mean, like, you can put them into any class, and that class will stay alive no matter what. Like, it becomes very difficult to kill Argonians.
But the dumb
really?
Try.
Yeah.
That's only because the Dumber want what they have.
Yes.
They want those dope ass scales that remind you of your cousin Kevin's lizard from 7th grade.
They wish they could erect the spine of wonder.
Instead, they must erect the spine of envy.
Yes.
How many spines exactly are Argonians supposed to have?
Many.
A lot. All of them. One spine for each emotion.
God. One spine for each emotion, then occasionally spines for things like procreation, which isn't necessarily an emotion. That's just.
I know exactly what spine that is.
God, I still think one of the best things. There's a minor quest in Murkmire where you help out the Bright Throats with their mating ritual, because the Bright Throats are the Bright Throat tribe is very unique in that they do not mate with themselves. They specifically mate with members of other tribes in order to facilitate good relationships.
I really like that, actually.
Well, the thing is, one of the tribes, they had a member, the guy from that tribe who always comes to the Bright Throat's aid. He's exceptionally old, in fact, so much that his title is the Infirm. But the thing is, like, he cannot, like, normally he cannot move on his own. He needs other people to move him around for him.
Can you imagine being so old that you can barely exist on your own?
No. Here's the thing. Once sex starts, he is a fucking machine.
Yes.
It is 100% hilarious.
I fucking love
Unfortunately, he is dead. He is also 100% dead. He passed away on the way to the ritual.
Yeah, he did.
I love Berkmire so much.
Yeah, so just like one of his workers was like, I mean, I guess I could do it, but I need whatever potion he tends to use. So you had to go, I think it was like, I think for that one in particular, he tells you to like go up into the upper area of the swamp and find the plant. And he like hands you a picture of what the plant looks like. Unfortunately, it also looks like a solid 20 other plants.
Yeah.
And you can screw up.
No one told you that they were a good artist. They're doing their best.
Well, no. They are good artists, and he gave good descriptions. Unfortunately, it's just the fact that it's ESO, and the graphics aren't always the best.
Oh, shit. Oh.
Oh, boy.
Oh, fuck.
Do we learn anything more about Sithis in Murkmire?
So much.
Yes. My God. We learned the concept that it's Duskfall, wasn't it? The fall of the Argonian civilization?
Yes.
Yeah, we learned that prior to Duskfall, they had a very different view of what Sithis was. Because their view of Sithis was basically the Dark Brotherhood's view of Sithis.
Yeah.
Well, it was.
He brings the change through death. But after Duskfall, their view of Sithis changed in that he is the necessary change, but that is not always death. So they also started abandoning a lot of the Zanmirs that were basically just death shrines. Basically, it's this really weird concept of they went from Aztec to Mayan.
That is weird.
Because that's going backwards. Like, in terms of our own history, that is going backwards.
My knowledge of Sithis, like, the most I can talk about him would be from a Dark Brotherhood perspective. Simply just because that's where we've got
but
most
then
of
you also have to remember that the Dark Brotherhood is full of idiots who don't realize that the Night Mother is Mephala.
She isn't.
Yes, she is.
I reject this.
Why?
Because I don't like that story.
Why?
Because, like, it's just no.
Mac, you know it makes perfect sense.
I don't care. It makes sense doesn't mean
it's a good story.
This is true. But the thing is, it makes perfect sense because, you know, there's 100% in Mephala's sphere to fuck with her own followers.
Oh, absolutely.
I exercise my Khajiit prerogative to say I can like what I like and not like what I don't like, and I will have what I have when I have it, how I will have it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you want to have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that is the Khajiit prerogative. Ask Rajin. He both has cake and eats it.
He's also an asshole.
My favorite quote about Khajiit is that Khajiit said what Khajiit said.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things.
I said what I said. I think
one of my favorite things with the Khajiit was on Canarte's Roost. If you go to the Temple of the Two Moons,
oh yeah,
or it might not have been the Temple of the Two Moons. Shit, I know it was one of the temples there where they're learning martial arts.
That's Temple.
Yes. Temple of the Two Moons dance. That's what it is. And you can talk to the guy who's leading the class. And by the way, you know, if you talk to him, he'll immediately say, "Yeah, is there an important reason you're interrupting my class?"
Yeah.
Ask a lot of things. And when you ask him about Jakaje, he then explains that part of the thing with Jakaje and Riddlethar is that it's not the fastest route to what you want. It's the route that gives you the most goodies along the way.
Yep.
The best answer, really.
Which could potentially make it the longest route to what you want, but you will eventually get what you want.
And you'll also get all these shiny things.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's something to the effect of, or I'd have to look it up, but Riddlethar is not so much a way out of the maze, but the way to find the most sweets along the way.
Like, that's the thing. Riddlethar will get you out of the maze in time. Until it gets you out of the maze, except the fact that it will also be taking you on the scenic route.
Yeah.
The scenic route.
Am I wrong?
I mean, you know, come on. Everybody wants the scenic route.
This is true. The scenic route is best. All right, something I actually learned from is either a loading screen or from a lore book in game, or probably not an actual lore book, but like one of the various books. It was an interesting thing about the Altmer. It explained something that kind of puts the Altmer in bit of an interesting light because a lot of people will view Altmer as being very rigidly traditionalist. They will not change. They refuse to change all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what this bit of text explained is that no, this isn't true. The Altmer can change. They're content with tinkering with things. They just don't like grand sudden change on a large scale.
Right.
Get over it, pointy ears.
No. But here's the thing. It means that if you were to spend 300 years adapting the Altmer to be a lot more accepting, it would work.
It would just take a long ass time.
Yeah. But Altmer live a long time, so it works.
Yeah.
But everyone else...
I mean, that's why... That's why... Yeah, well, that sounds like their problem and not mine.
Not if you kill him.
Listen,
I mean, you're not wrong, but fuck.
Listen, Mac. Elves live a long time. This is why the Bosmer can afford to make meat alcohol that takes 10 years to make.
And tastes like fucking ass.
Jaga, baby.
It tastes delicious.
Raga, is that what you called it, Michael?
No, it's called Jaga, I think. Well, they have several. Jaga is one of them, yeah.
I mean,
Rotmeth is the much more important one, but you barely ever drink Rotmeth. Rotmeth is like...
Rotmeth.
Yeah, Rotmeth is specifically for ceremonial purposes. Like,
because it tastes so long?
It probably tastes like meat and bugs.
Meat bugs, delicious.
Fermented meat. Yeah, fermented meat and bugs.
I would like to point out that by this logic that they only use animal products, there is 100% the possibility that they make milk and honey alcohol. Because you can make alcohol out of milk.
And just straight honey if you want.
Yeah.
Like, there is meat.
Namira would be all over this. Like, see, rot is life.
Yeah.
Rot is life. Rot is
you have to let the meat rot to get to a good degree. You also cannot rush this. Like, that's the thing. It tastes off if you rush it because then all the bugs died in distress.
I like that idea.
You have to keep it happy. What?
To keep the bugs happy.
Now, however, Mac and Michael, I'm also about to make you guys very sad and very angry with the Bosmer.
Oh no.
I know, cat nut, right?
In order to make Rotmeth at the highest of quality, whenever you're lining out the threads to hang the meat on over the barrel, the highest quality requires the thinnest strung Alfie contestants.
Oh, I'm sure.
Why?
Well, the Bosmer also eat Argonian eggs, which is just awful.
Yeah.
It's just not right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not plant.
I mean, to be fair, they are elves, so they can't help but suck. So,
God damn it!
This actually, there's some really interesting stuff that comes up in ESO, where it turns out that a lot of the so-called monsters are actually sapient species.
Yeah.
You have conversations with goblins.
You have conversations with Lamia.
And then there's even a what the heck do they call them? Harpies.
Yeah.
And the harpies are and I don't remember if you actually have a conversation with a harpy, but it's a quest in the Alakir Desert, and it's like
it's not conversation with the harpy. You have interactions with the harpy.
They're a sentient species, and I'm like, oh, that's terrifying. But
this has implications.
Here's another thing to point out there. There are plenty of animals that we eat that are sentients. Because but you have to understand there's a difference between sentience and sapience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Actually, that reminds me.
Lamias seem to be sapient.
They are sapient.
Meanwhile, harpies just seem to be sentient. But on that same train of thought, pigs are sentient.
Yeah, pigs can also play video games.
Yeah, pigs
that'd
are
be like us eating elephants or dolphins, right?
Yeah, eating a labia would be the equivalent of eating a dolphin.
I have a question, and it's stupid, so just preface that. But you remember in Cold Harbor, there's like a few nets just sort of floating about?
Yeah.
And that's basically, as far as I remember, like the only Tamriel standard fauna that you see there. Which kind of implies that the nets are both sentient and also made some kind of pact or did something terrible that got them into Cold Harbor.
I will say this. There are also graveyards in Cold Harbor because Molag Bal likes graveyards, and he put them there. There is the distinct possibility that Molag Bal, either through himself or through his cultists, grabbed some netches and put them into Cold Harbor.
But what is the better idea? The idea that cultists put them there, or the idea that there is a netch cultist?
That is a pretty great idea.
Someone, probably me, write the story of the netch cultists.
Do it, Dan.
I'm putting it in the list.
Noda, if you will.
Yeah, Noda.
Listen, because of Sloda, we can now no longer just call things like a Khajiit Coda. You must spell it Coda, KH0DA.
Oh, geez.
Okay, I've written it down in my long, long list of dumb shit to write. Here we go.
My thing
that after the mushroom fights.
My thing that I'm trying to do is trying to piece together Namira's stuff, because she's the only thing I'll care about enough. I care about the Khajiit enough to do it, except Michael's already doing it / done it. So I got to find something else to do.
Does Namira even show up in ESO?
Yes, and it sucks because they underuse her in Zhao Ixif in Shadowfen.
Okay. Because I've been trying to think of which Daedric princes don't show up in ESO, and the only answer I've found so far is just Periite. Periite, the oft-forgotten prince.
Poor dude.
I haven't run into
so hard.
I feel bad for Periite because he's not a bad prince. He's a very interesting concept. The Taskmaster who is both chaotic and orderly.
Yeah.
But
of a different kind of order than Jigalag.
Yeah, it's the concept of status quo. It's the natural order. Yeah, the natural order may change over time, but that's still the natural order.
Yeah.
And yet, paradoxically, the Daedra of disease.
Yeah.
But
disease is part of the natural order.
Oh, maybe.
But not just disease. I think what he's basically Thanos. Is kind of how
that's not a bad metaphor. Yeah.
That's not a bad metaphor, but I also don't feel like that's accurate.
Yeah, he's not that mean.
It's because I say that because of the fact that Perry, he doesn't care about Mundus. He's one of those very interesting cases of a Daedric prince who does not actually care about Mundus, and as a result, tends not to actually do anything with Mundus.
See, I think what he does is how to phrase it. I think literally he's just so disconnected to it because he's so ever present in it.
Yeah.
In fact, in my piece that I wrote on Periite, his voice in the world is an elf overseer named Sothan, which is just Thanos moved around, the letters moved around.
Nice.
And when Periite does speak, what he says is, so I took the idea of, there's this lore book somewhere, and it says that Kine gives Periite the souls of skeevers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of took that idea and ran with it, that they've interacted before. Probably. And what I did with it is that Periite is really critical of Kine / Kinnerith, Kinarthi, whatever, because he's like, all she does is like to fill the world with life, just fill and fill and fill. And she doesn't pause to realize that if some of them don't die, they all die. And so that's where he just kind of grimly takes up the mantle of, I will keep the machine running, sort of thing. And his way to do that is plague, blight, culling the herd, so to speak.
Yeah.
I did not mean to go on a rant like that.
That was good.
I mean, that was like a less than 2 minute rant, so you're fine.
Now we have.
It's not nearly as bad as the 10-minute rant I started last time.
One of the things I'm trying to explore in my Namira piece is the similarities and differences between her and Sithis.
Oh.
Because in the Khajiit, in Clan Mother Anisi, there are some similarities between her and Sithis, at least as I've interpreted it. And that intrigues me, because I don't like the idea of two gods, higher beings, whatever, mirroring each other. I almost think of her as like, she's the den in which Lorechat was born, who was just, and it was just, as it was splattered in Afterbirth, it kind of came to know itself, and it kind of became lovers, sort of something like that, sibling lover things. I'm not sure if I like them better as lovers or sisters or siblings.
As is normally the answer with mythology, yes.
I really like the image of like Fatime, because I like to imagine that Lorechat's birth was difficult, and that she kind of just explodes out of there, and the cave soaks up the afterbirth, and that's Namira. Like that's when the Great Darkness becomes sapient. That's where I'm at right now with her. It's odd.
Awesome.
What if I told you the Red Guards casually gloss over the fact that they genocided 2 races? 3
Red Guards have a named Tall Papa, so they can go to hell.
They genocided 2 races. 3 if you count the giant goblins. Yeah, Dan, if you didn't know, that used to be a thing. Giant goblins who were like 8 feet tall.
Now, when they say giant goblins, do we believe them, or did they just murder a bunch of elves and then decide to gloss it over with the goblins?
It was the ghosts of giant goblins, yes.
So they're already dead, but we gotta do more than make them dead. We gotta annihilate them.
All right, so here's the thing: as you're going through the Alakir Desert,
we gotta cut their head off and beat them to death with it. Beat them to death with it.
Yeah,
I will kill you until you are dead.
So here's the thing: first off, they killed all the left-handed elves by nuking their country and coming this way. So automatically, we now know that we automatically have the basis to know that if the Red Guards don't get what they want, they are fully content with blowing up the continent and going somewhere else.
But I mean, it was elves that died, so it's not really that big a deal.
The second thing was that when they landed in Hammerfell, obviously there were people who already lived in Volenfell.
Yep.
The Needs and the elves. They were already standing around here. Red Guards land, see one single person with pointed ears immediately take off from the land and send in the military. Just start slaughtering elves and slaughtering men.
What was their reasoning for their distaste for elves, besides the obvious?
I believe... Max, shut up.
Magic, maybe?
I believe the thing is that they were at war with the left-handed elves for about 1,000 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
For what though? Like what?
We don't know. We just
ideology.
Like that's like for all we know, they started the war with the left-handed elves.
Maybe.
Nah, I mean, in all of history, the elves are usually the ones at fault for the wars and shit. So.
Yes, because the elves are at fault for the Tiber Wars.
Well, I mean, they didn't bow down, so yeah.
Okay.
Tiber Septim didn't even offer diplomacy before he sent in a robot to kill babies.
He did with Morrowind. They signed a peace.
Somerset. He didn't with Valenwood.
Huh? Oh, well, the Altmer especially. Actually, what happened with Valenwood? I don't know what happened.
I believe Valenwood also got places crushed by Numidium.
Yeah.
Did they?
Like, I want to say that Numidium effectively attacked Valenwood and Somerset at the same time.
Also, consider
I thought it was just Somerset. My thing with the elves is they just have a propensicy of proclivity. They like to enslave everyone that's not them.
But but here's the thing: the Bosmer don't enslave anyone, and the only race the Altmer have ever enslaved has only been goblins.
I don't like that. Don't enslave things. Fair wages, get the work done, higher quality. No one's enslaved. It's great.
Listen, man, I give my goblins fair wages in the form of scrap silver.
I was going to say in the form of food in there.
No.
I paid them.
Here's the thing. I give my goblins fair wages in the form of scrap silver. I honestly don't need it, but they really seem to like it, and they use it to pay for food that I give them.
So basically, you're arguing that the answer to slavery is a company town.
Yes.
Shit.
But like, the aliens did it.
The aliens did a lot of shit.
The aliens did horrible things.
The aliens were to slavery as Cronenberg.
No. Hold on. The farmer did horrible things.
They did. What? And so did the Dwemer, and so did the Alt.
No. Here's the thing. The Falmer. They were scared of Atmorans, and they did a preemptive strike, and then got pushed into death.
Yeah, it didn't really work out so great for them.
Yeah, but what other horrible things did they do?
Terrible. Probably a bunch.
They genocided a population of peaceful people.
Who?
Nords, or not Nords at this point. Atmorans, sorry.
I would argue that the Atmorans would never be peaceful,
though.
That whole population, look, okay, it was
the whole population of Sarthal wasn't gone.
Oh yeah, they left like 3 alive.
Dude, when the Falmer started attacking Sarthal, the Atmorans fought back.
Oh my god, how dare they?
Correct answer.
But no.
Just think about this. Think about this for a moment. You have one of the most beautiful civilizations to ever live in Skyrim. And suddenly, these rugged Vikings come out of nowhere. All of them
invasion.
All of these rugged Vikings carrying weapons at their side. Every single one of them, even that little toddler. You swear you just saw that toddler put a boot knife into their diaper.
Probably.
And they're just standing there menacingly.
And they're just like, yes, this is ours now. Meanwhile, all the Falmer are like, wait, no.
But
I'll say this: the Dwemer are worse. Like, absolutely.
The Dwemer are absolutely
no
horrible.
argument there. The Dwemer.
But Mac, here's a potential thought. You know that Atmor used to be Altmora, correct?
Yes.
What if the Falmer came from Altmora?
Oh fuck!
Of the elves.
I'll be right back. We need to talk about that. I'll be right back.
Okay, we will wait until Michael gets back.
I just
in the meantime, I am going to go use the restroom.
Mac, you can continue talking to me about your intense hatred of all elves.
It's just you have bettered the Dunmer for me. The Altmer. Okay, here's my thing. The Thalmor fucked with the Khajiit. So the Altmer and they're also rude to the Khajiit, so I just don't like them.
Now, are we talking Altmer as a people or Thalmor as a group?
But well, I despise the Thalmor.
I hate to hashtag not all Altmer.
But no, I mean that is a fair point, and I'm partly kidding when I talk about stuff like this. Because I do appreciate the Bosmer. I think they and the Khajiit are like really cool, and that they're the only races that worship the moons.
I have so many honestly fairly cute headcanons about the Khajiit and Bosmer that actually get along in certain parts.
Oh,
as opposed to like the interfighting ones, but certain tribes.
I think the Khajiit, Bosmer, and Argonians would have been a more fun alliance. I would have preferred that.
Yeah, like it genuinely bugs me that how the alliances work out just because it's more MMO-y that way, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It does.
It honestly took me a long, long time to finally get on board with anything that ESO did.
I mean, I just got it I guess 4 weeks ago or something like that. I mean, and actually not even, I had it, I played it for 5 minutes, and...
You're just like, no.
Yeah, because I was like, all right, I need some gear. So I was like, all right, the guards are always the easiest things to take out. So I just walked up to the justiciar and shoved my little iron sword thing that I got from Cold Harbor in her, and she just
sort of blinked and looked at you.
She cut off my tail and fed it to me. Like,
yeah, they are extraordinarily overpowered. I want to know how they got that strong in like basic guard academy,
basic training.
Like, why aren't we just sending these fuckers out to go and do everything, and we can just stay here like doing our craft and shit?
Because we have to wait for the player to come along. Otherwise, he'll have nothing to do.
Listen, Matt, I'm going to take over a human settlement. I'm going to bring other Altmer with me. I'm going to let the humans think, oh, fuck, we're all going to get enslaved. Then I will tell them to all go back in their fucking houses and accept their welfare check every week because I don't trust any of them to get the jobs done right.
What the fuck?
What?
I'm so confused.
Sorry.
I can also picture you just like simmering the whole time you were gone. Just exploding.
No, sorry.
What did I miss?
I have no idea.
We're about to talk about how the Falmer came from Altmora, and that's why they attacked the Atmorans.
Yeah, that's when Ziggler was coming back.
My mom just sent me this international snack box.
Ooh.
Oh, do you have any Tim Tabs?
I got some potato chips from the Czech Republic.
Wow. Okay.
Some South Korean like coconut snacks. I think that's what they are.
Oh, those are good.
Here's a Spanish chocolate bar.
Ooh.
Some Polish gingerbread with mint flavored icing.
Oh no.
A marzipan from Germany. I'm pretty excited about this. This is awesome.
Treat unboxing.
Oh, and some Polish sweet egg yolk flavored popcorn.
Oh, nice. I've had that before. It's really good.
She's gonna send this to me for the next indeterminate amount of months. So.
Okay, Mac.
Yes.
We have discussed in the past that Atmora was once Altmora, and that it was Wandering Elnafey who kicked old Elnafey out of it.
Yes.
Let us now suppose that the Wandering Elnafey who stayed in Altmora obviously would rename it Atmora, and they became the Atmorans. But what happened to those old Elnafey who were kicked out? If we assume that those eventually became the Falmer, now we must look at the Falmer mindset of the Atmorans showing up at the shores of Skyrim. The Falmer look around. They know they cannot expand their land anywhere. And they also know that the Atmorans kicked them out of their last home. So there's already a history of the Atmorans kicking them out of their home. And they cannot go anywhere else. They don't want to move into Dwemer lands because they know how fucked up the Dwemer are. They can't go south to Cyrodiil because they know how fucked up the aliens are. And they really don't want to go west to fucking High Rock because those Reachmen are looking really disturbing. So they are stuck with the following scenario.
Wait a minute. Are there Reachmen in there at this point?
I believe there are needs living in High Rock at this point, yes.
Oh, okay.
There probably aren't Reachmen yet, though there might be. It wholly depends on when the Bretons actually started showing up.
Okay.
But the Falmer are effectively left with the following choice. Either get wiped out of existence, or fight back the pushing Atmoran force. And they chose the latter.
And it didn't work.
Yes.
Okay.
They chose it out of fear, though.
Can you get me a pen while you're there?
I'll accept that. They might be the least awful elven race.
Yeah. But Mac, I believe that's another thing that needs to be pointed out. I feel that we throw around genocide a lot, but
Michael.
we throw around the term genocide a lot.
I'm thinking of using one of my
Have you ever had
basically simple things. It's a warm cheesy pizza dip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of
Andrew, can you like?
I got naan bread.
What?
I'll make the naan bread into garlic bread.
Nice.
And then we can get
That naan bread is awesome.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks, Mac.
Okay.
All right. This one is back. I apologize, but I may be the Moon Sugar leader, but I do need to flip over the laundry too.
All right,
have you guys ever had chicken dip?
Michael!
Sorry.
Thanks.
Open it away from the microphone.
Ah, my poor ears.
Yes, no.
What's going on?
I'm sorry, Andrew. I wasn't able to hear a thing
Andrew,
you said.
I didn't hear you.
Have you ever had chicken sticks?
No.
Hold on.
Kind of peanut buttery, but they're kind of flaky and hard. Like, you know.
Oh yeah, I've had those.
Yeah,
What happened?
I just had the Chinese version.
You did?
Yeah, they look
Awesome.
like they look like this.
I'm actually gonna see if I can track some of them down next time I go to Chinatown.
They're really good.
Y'all have a Chinatown too?
There's
I can't remember if it's probably not the world, but I know that the Chinatown in Melbourne is the longest continually occupied Chinatown in the Southern Hemisphere. It's kind of neat.
That was cool.
I've been to the one in New York. They tried to sell me Gucci cologne for $5. And Gucci in air quotes. I told them I only buy Gucci from Gucci.
Gucci with 2 O's in it.
Oh god. 2 O's and an H.
Here it's like more likely
phonetically.
you're gonna get like
Yeah.
slyly fake Uggs. That's like 2 blocks from the actual Ugg store.
Anyway, Matt.
I'm pretty sure it's
That's-
tap water
yeah.
with like aerosol sprayed into it.
Mac, what
Yeah.
I was trying to say with the Falmer and my argument that they were not committing genocide is the fact that it's the equivalent of the North Sentinelese attacking
The Norse and what?
the North Sentinelese
Oh, right, yeah. The
of
island
them attacking people who are stepping foot on their land. They're not doing it to kill those people. They're doing it to drive them away.
I'm pretty sure.
My problem with that, I would have been fine with that, except that they waited long enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't immediate, and they also they had peaceful interactions with the Atmorans prior to them deciding, you know what, they're spreading too quickly. There's too many of them. They're going to overrun us. Obviously, the answer is not talk to them, but murdering them.
Well, to be fair, again, if the Falmer did indeed have interactions with the Atmorans back in old Altmora, then
that's fair. But there's also the peaceful interactions they've already had to take into consideration.
But that's just it. The old interactions, when there was a lot of Atmorans, the interaction was the Atmorans telling them, "Fuck you, go away." But these peaceful interactions they've been having, it's been with a small group of Atmorans. Through their eyes, it's basically been the equivalent of small merchant groups. So they think, okay, yeah, we can have some peaceful interactions. You know, they're just sending some merchants over. That's fine. But then they start settling. They start setting up not a merchant shop, but a city. And I feel that's what set the Falmer over the edge. Because they immediately realized, oh god, no, it's going to be a repeat of history. And they tried to fight against it.
You make a compelling argument for them. So I will withdraw my hatred for the Falmer as they were. The way they are...
the way they are, they're worse than goblins.
I've never hated them the way they are. You
just don't like them.
No, I don't like them, but I pity them. I mean, it's heartbreaking, like how they got there.
All right. You played through Dawnguard, right?
Oh, yeah.
And did you ever talk to Knight Paladin Gelibor after getting Ariel's bow and junk?
Yeah, he wants to try to establish...
Yeah, he wants... After finding out that it wasn't a case of like, oh, the Falmer had been cursed and they cursed his brother, and instead realizing, oh, they weren't cursed, they were just fucked over by our cousins, he says that he wants to try and establish them, and he wants to see if he can at least get them back to some semblance of what they once were.
Mm-hmm.
This leads to a very interesting concept for me. I would think it would be very interesting if in the next test game we meet Falmer who are from Skyrim and they're slowly starting to get back to that normalized look they used to have. They're no longer looking monstrous, but you can still very clearly see a lot of the scars they used to have. You can still very clearly see the remnants of what
maybe they have excellent hearing even for elves, but they have shitty eyesight.
like you can see them, and like you can now actually see their eyes. You can see their eyes moving. You can see that they're trying to look at you, but they just have very poor eyesight, so it's very hard for them to make you out. You might even see
references.
Yeah, you might even see
in Skyrim of like they're not just brainless animals. I mean, they have a culture. It's ultra primitive.
Ooh,
but it's there.
Andrew just posted that the chips are mustard flavored.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're super weird.
Yeah, it's a very strange culture that they have for themselves because it regressed because of the Dwemer, and I think it would be very interesting to have them starting to interact with the rest of the world again, and like they make a note to like try and do their best to do it, and they even go so far as learning Tamrielic so that they can talk with other people.
I honestly love the idea of snow elves because I mean it's just and it not being the North Pole elves like that we have in our idea. Like wood elves.
Listen, man.
I think it'd be really cool to do it.
Yeah, because like not just that, but imagine them like, yeah, they've lived with like the Charis for so long. And they've used their chitin for so long that even as they start to come back to some semblance of what they once were, they start having that artistry again. They're still using Charis. They're still raising them
as like
livestock.
A burden kind of thing.
Yeah, but you start seeing them put more artistry into work. Instead of just like having very primitive looking chitin armor, they start making like this armor that looks like really nice filigreed armor. But it's still not very clearly made of chitin.
But it's not the like what Gelibor was wearing, like that.
It's not something. It's not something that beautiful, but it starts to have more flair. You start to see a lot more individuality, and you start to see a lot more artistry coming back to it.
I'd be interested in trying to see where they end up putting them, like where they would live. I mean, the Nords are gonna have it.
I think it could be kind of interesting if you had this whole concept of they do live. Like where they live now in like their caves and whatnot, that they do still live there, but they start like actually
start remodeling Dunmer City.
Yeah, they start like remodeling caves and shit to fit themselves a bit more instead of just being like this dirty cave.
Blackreach becomes capital.
Blackreach becomes an actual city again.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, it becomes like a major trading city because fucking Blackreach has Ethereum in it. That is 100% a great thing to trade with other races.
And it also connects to the surface world on several points through fortress cities.
Yeah. God, all right. This now leads to something hilarious. The concept of not interacting with the Thalmor, but the Falmer and the Altmer, like not the Thalmor Altmer, but like general Altmer, like merchants and whatnot, interacting with each other and actually hitting it off.
I don't think they would like each other very much.
I think they would for one particular reason.
Ariel?
Well, not just Ariel. Obviously, we have Ariel junk there, but the old Altmer or the old Falmer style of stuff was very artistic. So imagine if they start using their artistry again. You could start having a lot of Altmer who really hit it off with Falmer culture, because it's this new, unique concept of artistry.
What's old is new again?
Yes.
Kind of thing. I would also like to see the Forgotten Vale becoming their capital. Like,
oh my god, yes.
I mean, because it's kind of unclaimed land. Like, nobody even knows it's there. And
yeah,
I guess
except for the Falmer, of course.
Yeah. I guess it's technically in Skyrim, but it's like right on the edge of Hammerfell.
It's in High Rock too. It's in the Dragontail Mountains, I think.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me actually see if I can find the name of those mountains again.
It's just that like that architecture is glorious.
Yeah. Like, all right, I need to play Somerset, but I think a lot of that architecture is like very similar to how they decided to design new Altmer architecture in Somerset. Because apparently that was one of the things that the design team did. Like in the base game, a lot of the Altmer ruins or the Aldmer and Altmer ruins you go to, they're very similar to the Iliad ruins, but there's like yeah, there's like these minor differences between how those ruins were designed. And like when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense because the Ayleids came directly from the Aldmer, so of course they'd have a similar architecture style.
Yes.
But apparently apparently from what I've heard, a lot of the masonry and ruins on Somerset apparently have probably not much different, but like a very different look to how they've been designed.
The Ayleids are so interesting. They're like right in between Chimer / Dunmer and Altmer. Because the Dunmer are all Daedra, no Aedra, at least at first. And the Altmer are no Daedra, only Aedra, and the
Ayleids are hey, let's see how many contracts we can get.
Yeah, I mean they hit it up with all of them. Yeah. Also, the Ayleids have 10
Ayleids are assholes.
They are.
It's too bad
Andrew,
there's only one good
ancestors
Ayleid.
Are. I don't think you heard me. Andrew, did you hear me?
What? Sorry, I was distracting him.
I said, did you know who the 10 ancestors are of the Ayleids?
The 10 ancestors?
Yeah, there's that quest in Oblivion. Each statue is one of the 10 ancestors.
Oh.
And in one of the loading screens of ESO, it says that it's talking about an Ayleid ruin. I think it's a Shadowfen loading screen. And it talks about it's like a library dedicated to the 10 ancestors.
Mm.
Well, and I'm wondering if you just knew who the 10 were.
Well,
Frank, Tim, Kevin, Bob, Phil, second Bob, Joey.
I imagine
featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series.
Like I'm imagining it's the 8 from the Altmer with 2 others.
Padme, maybe?
Well, I mean, to be fair, let's think about the Altmer for a second. Yeah, you have the 8, but then you also have Finasters, Ciribane, and Xerxes.
Yeah,
like the Altmer pantheon.
I don't think it's the 8. I think it's a mix of Etada in general. We know Meridnunda would be one of them, so Meridia. We know Molag Bal would be another one. Because those are the different patron saints of certain
by Azura.
So that's Azura 3 times.
I'm sure Azura could be one. She has to do with light just as much as the other two do.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'd like to point out Azura's sphere is weird. Because her sphere is specifically Dusk and Dawn.
Azura is one of the weirder Daedra.
Yeah, her sphere,
Michael,
Dusk and Dawn. She also doesn't have much control over either.
I'm here.
It's Michael.
I'm here.
Azura, you're up. Talk to us about transition and all.
She's about periods of change.
Yep.
And that's her sphere. So, I mean, we can look at more Mehrunes Dagon. Say, oh, he is the prince of change, of revolution, of hope. Well, Azura is the embodiment of that period of change. So that's the main difference here. So she's the mother of the rose, of dawn and dusk. I think the rose is in part a reference to her vanity. Because in Daggerfall, she is referenced as she's all about vanity and ego, and that's her sphere. And so I think if we combine the two, that really kind of punctuates what Azura is. And
so,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, please. I'm done.
Right. So the real trick to understanding Azura is to recognize that there is a common mistake made when talking about her. People talk about her as the dawn and the dusk, and that's wrong. It's dusk and dawn, and it's always dusk and dawn. There might be one reference where it's dawn and dusk, and that's a mistake. So first off, she's the Daedra of transitions, okay? Because dawn and dusk and dawn, those are periods of transition. Because it's the dusk, begins with dusk and goes into dawn, It's the period of night, which is actually the domain of Nocturnal. More on that another day, because Nocturnal is the daughter of Azura. Well, never mind. We'll go. That's different. God. Yeah. So, Azura is the Daedra who oversees change and periods of transition. Or she's the Daedra of moments of transition. Okay, Mehrunes Dagon may initiate the transition. Nocturnal is the darkness within the transition, but she is the guardian of the gates of dusk and dawn.
The Crimson Gates?
Yeah, Crimson Gates.
Crimson Gym.
That's a vagina.
That's the Mankar of stars, bro. No, and I would say Mother of the Rose is a reference to the sun, to the rising and to the setting sun and the rising sun. Dusk and dawn. That would be my take on it.
It makes more sense.
Didn't you also say that she's the clan mother?
That's. Oh, let me think here. Did we get this from actual lore, or is it in-house lore? I can't remember. But in the mod, we refer to her as the mother of mothers, and it's a little tricky because Mephala is referred to as the clan mother, but it's to Azura that Fatima gives her secrets, not Mephala. And you can interpret that about 15 or 16 different ways. But I like to think that if Fatima is the protonymic archetype of the clan mother, Azura is the clan mother in the current phase, because to be a clan mother is about secrets.
Now listen, Azura is whiny, make a look at me.
No.
And I can go on to give this sort of horrible explanation for all the other Daedric princes if anyone names a Daedric prince.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. We're going to disagree about this.
Yes, we will. And unfortunately, I'm not being serious about this. I just want to make a joke. Go on, name Daedric princes, and I'll give you horrible explanations.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But so that's kind of so Azura then is either the periods of transition or the entire period of change within transition. It's tricky because sometimes the Daedra overlap, right? And in very old lore, and I don't know where it is, I would have to try and dig it up, and I'd have to go to Bard to find out. Nocturnal is referred to as the daughter of Azura. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've heard. And so Nocturnal, the Urdra, is the darkness within the period of change.
Whoa, what? Urdra?
You've never heard that?
I have. I just vehemently disagree with it.
Oh.
She is the Urdra. She is the darkness in the beginning.
What? What? What?
Mac, are you doing okay?
You okay, bro?
That's Namira.
No. Namira is the darkness in the heart of Lorcan. Wait, no, hold on. Wait, I have to go back and look at that.
Okay,
she either is the great darkness or she's the darkness in the heart of Lorcan.
She is the great darkness. The great darkness knew its name, and it was Namira.
Okay, so she's the great darkness.
Yeah.
Okay,
that
I would like to point out I'm looking up Urdra. The very first link is why isn't Namira the Urdra?
This is actually something I wonder about too. I had.
It means oldest Daedra, right?
Is first.
It means the original ancestor.
Well,
which raises all manner of interesting questions.
Okay, Nocturnal is accorded the title of Urdra by nearly all royalty of Oblivion. As the Mother of Night, she claims to be an aspect of the original Void itself, and is generally deemed best to fortify this declaration in one's evening prayers.
Yeah, no. She is
from Imperial Census of Daedra Lords by Michael Kirkbride.
That's it. She is the darkness.
Wait, hold on. Didn't Michael Kirkbride come up with the concept of Urdra?
Probably.
So does that mean he's right?
No.
Well, not necessarily. sometimes Kirkbride is trolling us. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Should I explain where I got original ancestor from?
Go ahead.
Well, if you want to interpret it literally, wouldn't that be the dreamer?
Not necessarily.
Oh, that's even better, but no.
So think about this. Aedra is our ancestors.
Yes.
Divide that in two parts. A and Dra. A-E, which is a part of the soul. That is, I am. Right? So if we think of the pairing of the letters A and E as it is a confirmation. I am. It is.
Yeah.
And Dra is ancestor. The Aedra are our ancestors.
And then when you make Daedra, it becomes not our ancestors.
Daedra is not our ancestors. The only thing that changes is the D in front. D as a prefix is not. Not is ancestor. Not our ancestors.
Okay, now I need to ask something very important. So therefore, Urdra means something ancestor. What does mean?
Means original. Or first.
So does that mean Dagoth is first Dagoth?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. That's 100% what that means, because Dagoth he is both the beginning. He is the
Nocturnal
beginning.
Cannot be. Nocturnal cannot be the Urdra if, as Michael says, she is the daughter of another Dra.
And perhaps,
but she is the Urdra in that she is the darkness that came from the void. That is her spirit.
No.
She is not the Urdra because she is the Urdra. She is the Urdra because her spirit belongs to the Urdra.
No, that is Namira.
The others may not may not be ancestors. So the Dra or Daedra applies.
Namira is sterile ancient darkness that preceded creation, and she succeeds it as well.
All that means is that Nocturnal subgradiated.
Nocturnal is night. I'd be okay with that. I mean, she's just Namira's shadow kind of thing. That's fine because that means it's still Namira. It's just, I mean, she's night specifically. She's shadows.
All right. A Sky of Dust by the author Romian Garvet. By Romian Garvet of the Whispering Shadow. Do you guys mind if I read this?
What's it about?
Nocturnal.
Go ahead.
Actually, no. Wait. Give me a moment. I need to figure out which one I actually should read.
Okay, well, you do that.
All right, actually, no. Okay, I will read Imperial Census of the Daedra Lords. Since it actually says it here. All right. Namira's scuttling void has been closed by consensus of the Elder Council until further notice. It is mentioned here only for the sake of completeness. Wait, what?
Yes.
Followed by Nocturnal is accorded the title of Urdra by nearly all the royalty of Oblivion. As the Mother of Night, she claims to be an aspect of the original void itself, and it is generally deemed best to fortify this declaration in one's evening prayers. All right, here's my take on that. She is not literally Urdra, but she demands that title. And and the royalty of Oblivion is not always specifically the Daedric princes, it's also Daedra lords who know better than to fuck with the Daedric prince and not do what they say.
And given the events of the Somerset DLC, no spoilers.
Thank you.
There may be a reason she demands that title. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I haven't played it, but I know what happens and all that. And
I have not played it, and I don't know what happens.
I will not say any spoilers. I'm just saying I have watched the videos, I've heard what they have to say and all that. Nocturnal is night and shadow. That only exists if there is light and day. Namira preceded light. See, does that make sense?
Okay. Explain what you mean by that.
Wait. Hold on. No.
Because I have a thought then. But Mac, you go.
Okay, so let's take a look at it from our own world. And let's just, people argue about this shit all the time, but let's just assume the Big Bang Theory is 100% correct. Okay. So if that's the case, then Namira would be that absolute darkness that preceded the Big Bang, which we imagine is an explosion of light and such as that. Nocturnal is not that. Nocturnal is night as we perceive it now. It's a diminishment of light, not an entire absence of it.
I have an argument against that.
I'll hear it. But do you see the contrast that I'm trying to delineate between? Okay.
My argument is thus. What you need to remember is that shadow is not just the absence of light in Tess.
No, it's well, actually, if you're going to do that, I also want to hear your definition of Namira is the ancient darkness, because that's established as well.
Okay. Let me throw something in here to see if this will help.
Yay.
So the Daedra princes are interrelated, and sometimes their spheres bleed into one another. So let's take a look.
Like Molag Bal getting called the god of schemes, even though that is absolutely not his sphere.
It is definitely not his sphere.
God, Sam gets pissed off about that so much.
But let's take a look at this one. So we have the preternatural darkness, which in this case is being claimed to be nocturnal, or it could be Namira, whichever. From this darkness comes the period of transition, and that is Azura. Within that darkness, I would say within that transition is what is the great darkness, which is the shadow work, and that being Namira. And within that are the nightmares of the darkness, which is Vermina. You see how that works?
Then what is nocturnal in it?
I mean, if you take the idea of the Urdra, she's the darkness before the transition, or she's the preternatural void out of which the first light came.
So the Sithis.
So this is where it gets tricky, because the Urdra thing makes her sound like Sithis. Oh, okay.
All right, so Mac, you've been saying that Nocturnal is the child of Azura, right?
No, that was Michael.
That was me.
That was Michael? All right. Here's how I feel I can explain this, with Nocturnal being darkness and shadow. Meanwhile, Namira is the ancient darkness. My reasoning for how Nocturnal could come before is to remember that we're talking about events in non-linear time. And the words of Clavicus Vile, in non-linear time, you can go through the fantastical event of dying before you're even born. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, that's terrifying. So she is born of Azura, but she comes before Azura. And there's the potential that ancient darkness, yes, is a thing, and yes, it belongs to Namira, but it doesn't specifically mean ancient darkness in the sense that it came before all other darkness.
Then please define it then.
The way I see it, there is the possibility that the ancient darkness is what Nocturnal at one point may have had control over. She just had general control over the concept of darkness. And Namira was gifted the most ancient part of that darkness.
Okay, so I found a Reddit post that deals with the interconnectedness of Azura, Meridia, and Nocturnal. I will post it in the Facebook chat. Sage of Wheelam says about Nocturnal being the daughter of Azura. That's a designation by MK that's never sat well with me. No, I'm sorry, they're talking about the Urdra. I just purely and honestly disagree. The idea, I think, was that Nocturnal sphere was night, and by associated extension, darkness and shadow, and hence she must be an ancient spirit, since the conditions stretch back to the beginnings of the Arbus. Well, we have another Daedric prince with little ear to characterization, whose sphere has been directly referred to as the Ancient Darkness with a capital D, aka the Void, aka from whence Anu and Padme originally came. One may suppose Namira is more deserving of the title. She also features very prominently in the Khajiit creation myth, so there's that too. Good on you, Sage of Wheelam.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a good one. This is a good one. Nocturnal is the patron of thieves, so she may have stolen the title. Boom! There it is.
I would believe that. I would also believe Namira doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wouldn't care.
What'd you say, Michael? You said here it is.
She wouldn't.
She wouldn't care.
Like,
oh no! She's too old to care. She's the Daedra that will always win.
You have been talking to Max.
No, I haven't. No, Michael, I'm so glad you said that because I came up with this on my own.
Oh, that's so good.
I mean, I didn't make up the lore around her, but I've just been obsessing over Namira and just looking at her and looking at her and looking at her, and these are just the conclusions that I get to.
That's good stuff, man. You're doing good work.
I'm so excited. Validation.
They're doing Oriole's work, my son.
I prefer Lorechat.
You'll get Alkosh and you'll like it.
I accept Alkosh.
You'll get Alkosh and you'll have to deal with his scaly nethers.
Chuck, you would like my latest piece on Hermora because it features a clan mother who knows secret knowledge of Alkosh that Hermora just ravenously wants. In fact, he wants it so bad that he unleashes an ocean of drool thinking about it. But she, in the end, she keeps it from him.
Well, that explains the water physics.